So Shanda wanted Timothy to move in with her.
Yeah. In her twisted psychopathic mind, he was useless. When it came to him, I already had enough. I was easily agitated. I guess he was needy or irritating. I got irritated very easily.
As you sit there right now, do you love Timothy?
I suppose I didn't love him enough.
Welcome back. Today we have reached our part 3 of our 3-part series covering the interrogation of Paul Ferguson. For those who don't know, originally this was supposed to be one massive upload, the file corrupted, and now I had to release it in 3 parts. I was lucky to recover as much as I could, so there will be some errors here and there or some little malfunctions here and there, but it should not be consistent throughout the entire video. At the end of the day, I'm just happy to get this out there. And to summarize the first 2 parts of this interrogation, this is in the investigation of the murder of Timothy Ferguson, who on July 6, 2022 was found emaciated and deceased in a closet, killed by his biological mother and biological brother, Shanda Vander Ark and Paul Ferguson. And up to this point, Paul has pretty much confessed to absolutely everything you can possibly think of. The horrors just never stop. Everything that comes out of his mouth is just jaw-dropping, and he says it like it's nothing. And the overall discourse has been, how aware was Paul? Was Paul manipulated by Shanda into doing these things, or did he understand what he was doing and did it anyway? And it's the latter. All the evidence that we have looked through, all of the text messages, all of the audio, all of the jail phone calls, everything points to the fact that he knows exactly what he did and what he was doing. He did it anyway, and he wanted to do it. And now literally the next day, when he's being confronted by the police, he's giving all of these little, oh, I know, I had no idea, I loved him so much, even though everything else shows he wanted to harm him constantly. And he did harm him. But so far, the police officer has been incredibly nice, caring, and gentle with him, way more than I think 90% of other detectives would have handled this, given the details and the circumstances of this case. So I will continue to applaud this detective throughout this entire video. But now we have reached what I am calling the switch. And that is, in every interrogation this happens, most of them, where you've given your whole story, you've told everything you want to tell, the detectives have let you believe that you are in control of the conversation and that everything is all well and good. Then the switch happens and they actually confront you with your lies. They poke the holes through your stories and they tell you what you need to hear. And most of the time, if you're a weak criminal like Paul is, then you crumple instantly. At the end of part 2, I cut off mid-reaction right when we got to the switch, so I'm going to play a little chunk of the end of part 2 and then continue with part 3. This case involves a lot of sensitive and triggering details, so if anything like that, including child torture, starvation, sleep deprivation, assault allegations, just pretty much everything you can think of, this case has it. So if that is not something that you can handle or that is good for your mental health, please take care of yourself and we'll see you in the next one. Other warnings. If you're new here, welcome to the world of long-form rant content where there is no structure and there is no goal other than me reacting to the video until we finish, and it takes as long as it takes. So this will be a lot of me talking. If you want to watch the interrogation all the way through, this is not the video for you. There will be a link to the raw interrogation down below, which is provided by the channel No Commentary Reactions. The clearest branding out there. They give you what you want, so go check it out over there if you're interested. Also, I do not express any authority or expertise on this channel, so you take what you take, you leave what you leave. But if you leave a like on the way out, because that's just good home training. Exactly, Linda. So she's ready to go, I'm ready to go, you're ready to go, let's go.
I know at one point that he was actually refusing to eat. We would give him his food and he would just be stubborn and sit there and just slowly. It was regular bread, nothing else on it. Just chow down to the point where it was basically he was trying to waste time. He could be upstairs.
Where did he spend most of his time?
In his room. We wouldn't make him stand. Sometimes we would have him kneeling, like on his knees, like this, facing one of the corners. But
What was that for? For punishment?
yeah, I don't even know what it was for at this point. I'm not sure.
But where did he spend most of his time?
It was in that room.
The closet there?
Yeah, I think less than 3 or so weeks ago we've been having him try and do schoolwork, but the thing is that he's just, at this point I'm slightly curious on how he was even in sophomore year. He was supposed to be a junior next year, but we weren't sure if we were going to be able to do that because he was flunking everything. And my mother graded fairly. She used the actual answers that were on the website or in textbook or some sort of. Back in Oklahoma, he was also even destructive at school, destroying textbooks, desks, really anything.
So
He was a destructive child.
and like this all happened, right? Where do you and your mom agree to tell the same story that he was in the bunk bed, or how does that happen? You couldn't have both just possibly made up the same story.
No.
So what happened? She told you, right? She told you what to say. It's okay. She told you what to say. Because why? Did she tell you why? Does it look bad for you guys?
It's not just that. We loved him.
Can I ask you this, like straight up? You keep saying love. Do you feel like this was love? That he's dead now because he couldn't eat food? Does that feel like love to you?
No.
He's dead because he couldn't eat.
And now we have officially reached the switch. This is when the detective is finally dropping the act and is now going to respond more truthfully how he's felt this whole time. The interrogation was over by the start of this last chunk when he said, "What else can you tell me?" Meaning he went through every single question he needed and he had for them, and he's asking, "Anything else you want to confess to?" And Paul said, "Absolutely. Let me tell you all the ways in which Timothy was horrible and caused this to himself." Dare to bring up, he refused, at some point he did refuse to eat, or he would eat really slow. He would chow down. I'm like, you're giving him bread and you're calling him eating that slowly. Oh, look at him chowing down because he's wasting time upstairs when he could just be downstairs looking at a wall like we told him to. Or as Paul's trying to clean up, don't worry, sometimes we had him kneeling. It wasn't always standing with his arms behind his back staring at a wall. Sometimes it was kneeling with his arms behind his back and staring at a wall. Every single sentence he says paints a more horrific and callous and demented picture. None of this was unintentional. None of this was unknowing. These are two very capable individuals. One, second magna cum laude in her class, graduating law school, yada, yada, yada. And Paul, socially awkward as fuck, but is very much aware of the situations he is in. And he's not good at manipulating, but he thinks he can manipulate those situations. And so he does. And so the detective asks, so what was that for? Why was he always in the closet looking at a wall? and he couldn't answer because that was just his day-to-day schedule to them. He is always deserving of punishment, and until he is a perfect angel somehow, I mean, he never will be. There's nothing he could do to satisfy these two monsters, no matter how hard he tried. And that's why in these text messages, it feels like Paul is just making some of this shit up in order to punish him further, in order to justify doing the exact same things every single day. And then things get quiet when he's talking about, yeah, he spent most of his time in that room. And so then on top of that, he goes to insulting Timothy again, bringing up schoolwork, saying, I'm curious at how he even made it to sophomore year because he was flunking all his class. The boy was starved. How on earth did you think he was supposed to learn anything, retain anything, when you leave him in a constant state of pain and discomfort? And then you're expecting him to do 10th grade algebra? Like, that is a lot. And the whole mama graded fair bullshit. You think this woman who has done anything to take her anger out on him is actually grading his work fairly? Also, she's apparently the one who's being the teacher as well. That must be horrible. One, she's a terrible teacher. Can guarantee that. Two, she's probably insulting him the entire time, not asking if he actually comprehends, not actually doing anything to help him, but just doing the bare minimum so she has a reason to punish him further. And this is where his feelings poke through. He's trying to make all these lies of all of these. I've had these revelations. We loved him so much. He's amazing. He's this. Like, we just wanted what the best for him. I can't believe he was even made it this far. He's so dumb. And all he wants to do is chow down all day when he should be downstairs in his room. And then there's silence after the flunking school. And I love this detective so much. He doesn't pay it any mind at all, being like, you just said that. I didn't ask a question that prompted that. That is just your feelings. You are saying that he is unintelligent, as if that has anything to do with what has happened right now or with what you did to him. It actually only exemplifies the treatment that you were putting him through, how detrimental it was to his health, mental, physical, emotional. So he just lets that sit in silence. And then, because people who really want you to view them in a certain way cannot just sit in silence. Just ask Sarah. She said, I could sit in here without a peep and non-stop talk her way to a life sentence. And Paul did the same right here, because after that silence, how does he break the silence? Oh, he was also destructive in Oklahoma. He tore up desks, he tore up textbooks, anything. And then the detective starts to talk and he said, no, wait, I need to get out my last thought. He's a destructive child. The day after he died, this is contradicting everything you have been portraying this past hour. It's just your true feelings slipping out, because literally you were sitting in silence. There was no reason for you to bring that up, and for it to be such a negative sentence that you feel the need to get out, as if trying to make him sound worse makes this look better. It doesn't. And then the one thing I do ding the detective on is that he was kind of feeding the answer of, she told you to say these lies, correct? And that is the truth, more or less. She told them that they need to lie. But he is the one who has ran with that and come up with all of these lies that they didn't corroborate. And that's why everyone's story sounds all over the place. But the detective really wants him to believe, or at least to admit or to say, that it was the mom who told him to tell these lies. And he's struggling because that's not what happened. He is the author of 90% of these lies. It's like they both agreed to lie about the same things or lie on the same things, but just not how. And so that he went back to his good old faithful, whenever he's lost in this interrogation, he said, we loved him. And this is when the official switch happened. The detective says, can I be straight up with you? You think this is love? And this is what he has wanted to say since question 1. You think this is love, since the first time he ever uttered that. And now that this switch has occurred, he is no longer going to spare Paul's feelings or care about his discomforts, and is going to to ask some harder questions, and Paul is just going to absolutely crumble into nothing. But before then, we're going to take another detour and get to the May text messages. We're almost caught up to July, so I want to get through these texts before we get back because, as the detective has said multiple times, we have read all the texts. So this is what's going through his mind, as well as the thousands of others, when he's continuing this questioning. May 4th, 2022. Shanda says Timothy snuck food on Paul's watch. Of course he did. Honestly, I can't sleep for 2 dadgum seconds without him. May 5th. You may have to put your car in the driveway because we may still be cleaning when you get off. That's if Timothy keeps screwing around. I'm ready to just let Timothy do everything because he's made a big mess than it was. And he keeps trying to sneak old gross food. May 6th. I think he did it to spite me. May 7th. I didn't want to disturb you, so I was trying to whisper yell at him to shut up. May 9th. I never gave him permission to even set foot in your room. I swear he must have done it when I went to the bathroom. He's trying to get me in trouble here, Mama, and I told him to go to his room. I brought him downstairs with me so his sneaky butt escaped. There was some stuff I didn't get to because I had to go behind Timothy and properly do it. May 11th. I needed to catch my breath. Don't worry, I'm making sure he, Timothy, doesn't steal anything. May 15th. Please get home soon. I'm ready to strangle Timothy and then knock him the freak out. He told me he needed to go to the bathroom. See him trying to sneak pizza. He's up against the wall. Yet you want to claim just last week he had 3 slices of pizza. If he ever came close to that pizza, this is how you react. Yes, he snuck something else at some point. I don't know what it was. I have yet to ask. May 16th. So I decided to put the wrist alarm for Timothy into an adjustable knot, then knotted it off as his wrist and cut the spare yarn because he used one of the times the alarm went off to sneak into the garage. Good grief. Like, it is impossible to say this isn't intentional. You are literally learning new knots and then cutting yarn and this and that, just the dedication. I'm ready to beat him within a millimeter of his life, Mama. Timothy is on a 5-minute bathroom timer. Well, 4 now. And this text was horrible because now we know Shanda said he doesn't get 5 minutes. He gets 1 minute for number 1, 2 minutes for number 2. So that's why people got so distracted by Paul's messages, because hers were even worse and eviler and crueler and more sadistic. So we looked over all of this and we just said, wow, how could someone think about this? And then you look back and you're like, wow, he was just as involved, just as creative and enthusiastically involved in all of this. I'm now ready to beat him black and blue. He took advantage of me yet again. I'm so far beyond done with his bullcrap. I have plenty of yarn to reattach the alarm to his wrist, but I think I tightened and tied off the slip knot is the best way to keep him from giving it the slip. May 17th. He was in the garage and toppled stuff. Believe me, I'm not happy either, Mama. My volume was off. Timothy snuck peanut butter and pancake in a cup. He also crapped himself. He, quote, didn't want to disturb anyone. May 18th. He decided to get changed without permission. He's really pushing my buttons already. May 29th. Are we still good for Craig's Cruisers and amusement park after work? Shanda says no because Timothy allegedly taking candy. Oh, freaking course he did. Steal candy. Dang it, I really wanted to do that. And it looks like that was the highlights for May text messages. Just more of the same. This is just getting more and more physically violent. He is way more comfortable saying, can I hit him? Can I hit him? And not even asking, can he? Saying, I'm about to. I want to beat him. How many times has he said, I want to strangle him? I want to beat him within an inch of his life. I want to knock him out so that he is sore and asleep. This is not normal. Siblings do not talk this way to each other. Even when siblings fight, they're not talking about constantly assaulting each other. And again, they're making him this mastermind. He's trying to take advantage of me. He's trying to blame this on me. He's trying to give you the slip, this and that. When you're telling us he can't even have a full-blown conversation. Yet every time you go to talk to, like, text here, you're saying, he told me this, he told me that. What are you talking about? You're saying it was hard to understand him, meaning you're putting words in his mouth and forcing him to agree to it, more or less. And then just the wrist alarm and the yarn and the dedication to the slip knots and the different, like, he's proud of it. He is proud of being able to find what he thinks is a solution to restrain his brother further. Now, the day after he dies, I could have done anything. I could have done anything. And I only did this because my mama directed me to. Not at all. Did she tell you go up there and try to find a better knot on how to do this? Did she tell you to continuously threaten his life again and again and again? No. And at first I was like, oh, he bought into it and he kept going because he still wanted his mother's approval. He didn't even get it for that. Shanda's the one who had to rein in the leash more often than not of saying, no, you're not going to do this. Calm down. And he's like, please, if he does this again, can you let me deal with it? Meaning you're already being too passive, you sadistic psychopath. So let me off the leash and I'll actually handle it. That's crazy. And then get mad whenever he would sneak food, allegedly, pancake in a cup, pizza. You had to snitch on every single little thing. So if you actually cared at any point about him, like you tried to make people believe on the stand, you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to do it every single time. Every single time you are telling on him. And then you're judging him when he's trying to live. He keeps sneaking old gross food because he's not allowed to have anything. And this is in May, 2 months before he finally died. And he is still talking like this. And it only escalates from here. And with that, let's get back to this mess.
No, and I don't know anybody that thinks that's love. What I think's happening is your mom's convinced you that she's this perfect person, and she's asking you to do all these things that are literally killing your brother.
I know she's not perfect.
How is that love? How is love ice baths? How is love handcuffing? And how is love restricting movement? And how is love hot sauce in the mouth and only eating bread? What if you only got to eat bread? How would you feel? What if you only got to eat bread with hot sauce? Would you eat?
No.
You're pretty skinny already. It wouldn't take you long.
This is my natural weight. I have an overactive metabolism.
But it wouldn't take you long to be very much skinny bones if all you got to eat was bread and hot sauce, because how could you eat it? And how could you feel good about eating it? Was he throwing up stuff when he was eating?
Forcefully, he would force himself to get it back up.
When? Like recently, in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, he would force himself, honestly.
You ever think it's because maybe it was painful? It's hot sauce. It's not like that just goes away. Did you ever complain about pain, stomach pain, pain from using the bathroom?
Not that I know of, no. I do know that my mother, she's not perfect, but she's not a bad person.
Do you know, can I ask you this? Do you know of any good people who starved a child to death? Oh. Tell me of one that you know. Tell me of one that you know. That's a child who has a lot of problems, right? That's not a child that's taking care of themselves. They can't take care of themselves because you guys are restricting where he can go and what he can do. And if he does something wrong, you're punishing him by giving him ice baths and hot sauce and only feeding him bread. How is that? How is that a loving person? How is that a loving mother? You know what that sounds like to me? And honestly, the worst mother I've ever met in my entire life. That's what it sounds like to me.
I know. But she's not.
Maybe she wasn't to you. Maybe she was a good mother to you. And maybe she wasn't to... She's a very good mother. But to one of the three children, she didn't care. You can say it if you want. She starved him to death because he wouldn't stop taking food. Well, maybe he's taking food because he wants to live. Have you ever thought about that?
Yes.
Maybe he's stealing food so that he can survive. He's dead because he didn't get food.
How knows that?
Well, that's not anybody's fault but your mother's. And you can try to take some of the blame if you want, but it's her fault because every single time I see a message in here, it's her telling you what to do. And she put you right in the middle of it. She put you right in the middle of this where it looks like some of the stuff your idea. And it actually looks like in some of these things that you kind of enjoy it. That you kind of enjoy punishing him for doing wrong things. Do you feel like you kind of enjoy punishing him for that stuff?
No.
Maybe not that he was in pain, but that you were in charge and you got to tell him, you can't do that, go do this, this is your punishment. Did you like some of that stuff?
No.
Did she like some of that stuff?
No.
How come you guys are laughing and joking about it sometimes with smiley faces and like...
If it's the upside down smiley face,
Yeah, what's that mean?
it's the opposite of happiness.
Okay.
It means that I'm really angry, and she's kept me calm.
She's kept you calm. Yeah, I bet. And I bet that's the reason why you are so adamant to get him to believe that she is not a bad person. Because if she's a bad person, you're a terrible person. Because you know she's the one who has to keep you on the leash. So she has to be a good person in order for you to be a good person. But he says, I know a lot, okay? If you know now, that means you knew then. I know she's not perfect. Then he's like, well, everything's with hot sauce. Would you eat it if it had the hottest hot sauce? No. Yeah, because you're a weak little... I can't stand people. If you're going to be bowdy about that, if you're going to be about that life, be about that life. If you want to torture someone, you better be willing to suffer the tortures you put them through. Or at least not be this, oh no, I don't like pain. I just like literally maliciously torturing someone begging for help. Then this is how I naturally am. I have an overactive metabolism. Okay, and y'all all share the same genes. I'm sure that is part of Timothy as well. That's why he dropped weight so drastically, and y'all still didn't care. You are a lanky twig. He was like twice as small as you are now, and you watched that. And if that were true for Timothy, that just meant that you were depriving him even more. He says, did he ever start throwing up? Oh, he forced himself to throw up. Okay, again, your real feeling slipping. You were mad at him for forcibly throwing up the hottest hot sauce in the world. So the detective says, hey, did you ever think because it's hot? Well, boop-a-doop-a-doop. I mean, I guess. He never complained about his stomach or going to the bathroom. Yeah, because if he complained, you would have punished him more. Y'all are sitting here in these text messages acting like he's having all these dramatic monologues back and forth with you, but he just happens to never bring up any time he's in pain or discomfort? No, because you ignore it. And any other time, you take his ability to speak whatever he can say, and you blow it out of proportion. So now him agreeing with you to get you to stop punishing him is him confessing to the worst things that have ever happened. And so then to try to misdirect again, and you'll notice it's becoming more and more popular. When he's feeling the heat come to the actions in general and close in on him, he then goes to, my mother, she's not a perfect person. We, and then he gets cut off. And I'm like, yeah, because you always use her in order to introduce the we so that you can distance yourself to make it seem like you were just her pawn and did whatever she said and not her co-collaborator. He says, name one good person who starves their son to death. And again, during all of these revelations, his face is unchanged. He's given this mopey, I'm sad. This is very much the definition of I'm sad I got caught. Because every little thing they tell him, he says he knows. And he is crumpling down now that the switch happened and he's finally starting to receive pressure. And that's how you just know he's just a weak little looking for someone who's smaller and weaker than him. Because deep down, he knows he is weak as I don't know what, and he can't pick on someone his own size or own age, so he has to pick on everyone smaller than him, animals weaker than him, anything he can exert control over. Then he has all the confidence in the world. Now he's in front of a detective, and he's acting like, I don't know anything, Still no emotions. To having all this stuff brought up, and to feel nothing towards it, even in hindsight, every time he brings up a horrific action, you try to justify it. You give the rationale for why you do it, and it would be one thing if you said, we did it because of this reason, and it's horrible, and I can't believe we did it, and we killed. Well, no, you don't need to be confessing to it, but you've already confessed to a million things, so you're already there. So at least if you showed some remorse, people would believe you a little more. But you're not really showing remorse. Your remorse is, I didn't want this to happen, and I don't want him to be dead. But not remorse over, I wish I didn't do any of those punishments. So then he cuts off and says, name one good person who starves their son to death. Exactly. And this is what I mean with like Paul taking the easy answers to things. As in like, so you can take the easy answer to, Mom, did you love me? Yes, always. Mom, did he lie? Yes, always. Then when it comes to a complex question of, is your mom a good person even though she does nothing but evil deeds? And since y'all are a religious family, you are even more hyper aware of said evil deeds and things you can and can't do based off of those beliefs. Then you have to go all the way around. You have to play Jenga, you have to play Tetris, you have to play all these mind games to make that reality fit. But for the easy answers, you can take it all day long. This is an easy question. Name one good person who starves their child to death. There isn't one. And he says that was a boy with a lot of problems. He needed help. But how they dealt with problems equals punishment. Anytime he had a problem, it was all his fault and he must be punished because of it. Which is why he wouldn't bring up stuff as if my stomach hurts or it hurts to go to the bathroom. He even said in one of those messages where he had an accident that he didn't want to disturb anyone. Because what would have happened if he disturbed someone in the middle of the night and had to go to the bathroom? Y'all would have lost your minds. So then he can't hold it anymore and has an accident, and now it's his fault again. Because they also never take into the account the environment that they have set for him, to where everything is a setup. There is no right answer, everything is the wrong answer. And since Timothy was considered a problem, that means Timothy was always deserving of punishment. And so detective says, you know what that sounds like to me? That sounds like the worst mother I've met in my life. You better eat her up. Absolutely. And then he goes, I know, but she's not. Another I know. Because he's not that dumb. He just liked that she was just as twisted as he was. Because you hear him say, she's not bad. She calms me down. I don't calm her down, even though we see in these messages she loses her mind. He does calm her down here and there, but he's not actively ever, rarely, trying to de-escalate her for Timothy's benefit. If he's trying to de-escalate her, it's because it would affect him too, and it would just make a whole mess, but not because he actually wants her to hold back or anything. When she asked him to do the hot sauce on the private parts, he just said no. He didn't give any follow-up of, no, that's horrible. No, don't do that. No, that is cruel and unusual. How could you ever ask that of one of your sons to do to your other son, you monster? Nope. He just said no. And then the detective finally brings in what he's felt this whole time, and so gently. I'm endlessly impressed, because the way I could never have that much restraint. And obviously this is textbook what you should do, but when you have cases like these, especially involving children, emotions are cranked to the 11, and it is not always easy to contain or regulate them. And so he says, these messages, it looks like some of these things are your idea, and that you enjoyed it. Did you enjoy it? No. Is that why you're asking again and again, please let me at him again and again? He's doing this wrong. He's doing that wrong. Wall sits. And I just put this together. One of the text messages says, we just found out this punishment from Larry of a hold your arms out straight with 2 cans of whatever in your hands and parallel, when he also just mentioned that's what his father had him do. So he also lied to his mother saying, oh, we just found out this punishment, when actually he just wanted to recycle something that happened to him. But this is how the detective has felt the entire time. You enjoyed this. Even though I'm blaming your mom because she deserves the majority of the responsibility, because she did have more influential control over the situation and could have stopped it 100%. She could have stopped it because she could have pulled in the reins on you completely. You were gleefully submissive in order to receive her praise. And she let you, quote, release your anger in the right and proper ways.
Like I said, because he made you mad a lot, right? It's not that he made you mad a lot. But when you look back on it, do you think he really could control it? Clearly he needed help. He didn't need punishment. He needed some help. He couldn't make those decisions or do those things on his own. You saw it over and over and over and over again, right? What was your mother's choice? Her choice was more punishment, less food. More punishment. The only food you get is bread. And the only bread you get, sometimes, is with the hottest hot sauce that we can find. That's all you get to eat. There's no way that you can look at yourself and think, that's okay. And that your mom's good for that. She was doing what's best for him. How could that be best for him? Why couldn't it be a piece of chicken that's cooked? Why couldn't he eat that? Why does it have to be bread with hot sauce? It's not about punishment. You need food to survive. You need food to live. He didn't get to live because of that. Because of what you guys did. And I'm sitting here talking to you because I think that way more of it has to do with your mom than you. I don't think that you're this bad person who was out here doing these things. But you're also still not telling me the whole truth about what happened that night. About the night that he ended up dead. That there's more to that story.
I've told you everything that I have. I don't want to live a life where I regret the fact that I hid somehow, something, and I've told you everything I know.
Boy, if you don't take that cheesy line on somewhere, I don't want to live a life where I regret I hid, except you just hid killing your brother for months. And only a day later, I told you everything I know. Lies, lies on lies on lies. You have done nothing but hide the truth this entire time, because you know how horrible the truth actually is. That's your guilty conscience eating you alive. That's why you're trying to say anything to get him to see you as a good person. And he's playing right into it. He is saying, I'm talking to you. Detective is saying, I'm talking to you because I don't think you're this bad person. He actually does. He absolutely thinks he is a horrible person. But he knows he needs to hear that he's not in order to tell on his mom more, who we all believe is a worse person. And I do believe that to her core. But that's why I say the more dangerous and insidious one is Paul, because he dodges this the entire time. All of this conversation also applies to him as well. But they can sidestep and he can talk about his mom, thinking that that's going to make them go over there and away from him. I don't want to live a life where I hid stuff. That's why I just told you that he ate 3 slices of pizza and had pizza last week. Oh, wait, he didn't eat anything. That's why I said, well, when he got home, we put him in clothes and he must have taken them off by the time he was dead in the middle of the night. And that's why he was called, oh wait, I didn't do that? Okay, no. That's why I said I heard him snoring. Oh wait, no, that was a lie too? Okay, that's why I said he was taking a bath and then I came in there and saw he was unresponsive. Oh, you found out it was an ice bath and it was a punishment bath that he was in for 9 hours? Oh, okay. Don't worry, detective, we stopped the ankle shackles. We just kept the handcuffs and the zip ties. We tried to feed him, but he wouldn't eat. And all of these lies have been debunked again and again. You have done nothing but hide your true actions and your true intention behind everything. So, like Rotten Mango in the clip that we saw earlier, she said people talked about how this interrogation looked like a cult member leaving and coming out of the brainwashing that they were under.
Paul said that the way he talked about his mom in the interrogation was like a cult member slowly waking up. But other netizens disagreed and stated that Paul was just as evil as his mother. They said because he's 20, he's a full-grown adult. I mean, there are a lot of people in this world that are abused by both their parents and they don't help kill their brother. And Paul and Timothy's half-sister came out to say she lived with Paul before and he was the biggest bully that she had ever met in her entire life. She fully believes Paul was involved in this and was fully complicit on his part, not coerced at all. She said even before moving in with Shanda, he was questionable. She stated the family wanted to get him tested for psychopathy, but because he wasn't 18 yet, they can't get a diagnosis for being a psychopath. And some of Paul's family members have stated that he was a relentless tormentor of Timothy without any coercion from his mother. Paul even stated in his interrogation that his brother Timothy...
This is not that. And then the detective cuts to the heart of what I think this whole thing is. Why couldn't it have been chicken? Why did it have to be bread? Because they wanted to give him almost nothing. It wasn't just the punishment. It wasn't about this and that. They could have given him the Hot Ones wings. It's horrible, still torturous, but it's protein. It's something that he could have lived off of. They gave bread knowing it is the barest necessity, especially if they're a religious family. They think all you need is the daily bread. That's not how actual life works. You can't survive off bread alone. But if you're in some warped, twisted reality where you just want to give them the barest thing possible, they are unworthy of even your already eaten burger, of frozen food. He's not worthy of any of that. Only bread with hot sauce. I don't want to live a life where I had to hide. You've been living a life of hiding this whole time. You hid Timothy from the entire world. If y'all thought what you were doing was actually okay, you would have let other humans see him. But no, there is a whole thing in trial about them going above and beyond to make sure that G's grandmother never saw Timothy. Because G's grandmother would come get him sometimes, and they would make sure that they only gave him to her outside, to where she never walked in the house. They had her GPS monitored. Shanda tried to say, oh, well, we had her on our phone plan, so yeah, we could find my phone and we could just happen to, find out her location. My family can do that too, I guess, if we wanted to find each other's phones, but no one's doing that because that is not normal. You were monitoring someone who doesn't even live with you just because of the idea that she could see what you have done to him. Hiding is nothing new to you. So miss me with this act. Okay, for the sake of getting through this, I'm going to do another 10-minute long chunk because I have to get through this video. I just do.
How do you feel about living a life where you hid that your brother wasn't eating from society, that you hid that your brother was dying? How do you feel about that?
I hate myself, okay? If I could take his place right now, if I could give him back his life, I'd do it in a goddamn heartbeat.
Did your mom ever do anything like this to you?
No. Not even back when she and my father were together. The punishments were him.
When did this stuff kind of start? Sounds like to me it started after your stepdad was out of the house.
Because Timothy would take advantage of that situation. We were all stressed. And he would take advantage of that. Anything he can find to take advantage of. Almost his entire life, except for, I think when he was still a baby. He would find some way to take advantage of whatever he can.
I'm sorry, what? Excuse me, sorry, I am a liar, because we will not be moving on past this whatsoever. what? He would take advantage of everything except maybe when he was a baby? Whoa, just wow. This is revealing of a mindset and a danger that Timothy was always in. How many times in these text messages has he revealed that Timothy was taking advantage of him? It's never defined what taking advantage of is, but Timothy does it. And so after the stepfather's stroke, we were all stressed, except Timothy, I guess. Timothy's not allowed to be stressed or to have any reaction towards that. Only you two. Because if he has a reaction to it, like you all are having your own individual reactions, he's taking advantage of you. He would take advantage of everything. And it never makes sense because he refuses to define it. Let's go through these text messages that I've read so far. He has said that Timothy has taken advantage of him. January 14th. He's now against the wall. He tried to take advantage yet again. January 18th. Oh, I'm sorry. He once again took advantage of me. January 19th. No, you're fine. I'm just getting really tired with Timothy trying to take advantage of me. May 16th. He took advantage of me yet again. And that's just of the text messages that we've looked at so far, and those are just highlights from the overall thousands of messages they sent. He nonstop said Timothy was taking advantage of him somehow. The boy with multiple disabilities that he nonstop insults and calls stupid and says can't really communicate is taking advantage of him, when the evidence shows it was the opposite and you took advantage of him. He has some isms that he just repeats that floor me every time. He's stuck in the past, miracle child, taking advantage of me. And so then every time he proclaims that, he is justified in going further and further because I'm not really punishing him. He took advantage of me, so he deserves this. So anything he does, like just to survive, to find some kind of joy or relief at any moment, is taking advantage of you. And then to go back to the top of that section, he says, well, how do you feel about living a life where you hid the fact that you were starving him to death? I hate myself, okay? Yeah, real convincing. If I could give him back his life, I'd do it in a dadgum heartbeat. Also, this family doesn't curse, and it's a little strange to me. I'm like, that's where you draw the line? We can torture a boy to death, but no cursing. And I don't believe that at all. You could have given him life at any moment, at any time. But only when it's too late did you say you would do it instantly. No, you wouldn't. If you were able to resuscitate him, the torture would have continued. You all have never shown signs or evidence that when things get super dire, that you will actually try to nurse him back to health and do things that will help him. You will do one minor action and then keep going. But now you're getting yelled at, so you're going to say what you've heard on TV and what you think you're supposed to say. And the detective just stares at him so blankly and then says, has your mom ever done anything like this to you? No, not even back when her and their dad were together. It was always the father. He keeps trying to shift blame to the father. Leave that to me, okay? Because no, you can't shift blame. The father did this. We are talking about what Shanda did. And from what we've heard, there is nothing the father has done that has been even comparable to what you all did as quote unquote punishments. It didn't sound like he did great things, and it did toe that line of abuse for sure, but it wasn't torture. Yet, from your perspective, what he did is worse than what you were doing. Crazy work. Okay, now I'm going to try to make it the rest of that 10 minutes. I just could not move past that.
Was there ever food restrictions when, is it Eric?
Dad?
Yeah, not Eric. Not Eric. Adam? Adam's stepdad, correct?
Yes.
Was there ever food restriction with bread only when he was in the house?
No, because
Was the house messy like it is now? Disgusting.
It wasn't as messy. With all the stress that's been going on, we've had moments where, yeah, we could get it cleaned up, but...
Did your mom feel bad at all about getting him just bread?
Yes.
Locking him in the closet.
Yes,
and
she hates it.
And
she hates it. She never once enjoyed it.
Ice baths. She gave him ice bath on the day that he died, right? Leading up to it. And she wanted him to sleep in the tub. That's what I read. Did that happen? Did he sleep in the tub?
No.
He didn't.
No.
He didn't die in that bathtub and you guys dragged him into that closet and waited for the morning to call the police? That's not what happened.
No. It's not.
Do you think she did that? Do you think that message is just a little bit suspicious? That she sends you at just about midnight that says, he's in the closet, I had to drag him in there. You don't think he was already dying or dead at that point?
I was working. I didn't read that message until basically I'd gotten home.
But do you think she sent that for a reason? Why would she send that?
I don't know.
Doesn't it seem like maybe he was already dead? That she put him in there so that he could wake up and have died in his sleep? Because she can't call the police when he's in an ice bath and he freezes and he dies. Not freezes per se, but he dies in the bath. And she dragged him in there. Did she talk to you all about that? Did she tell you the truth about what really happened?
I don't know at this point.
She did, right? I don't want you to lie to me anymore.
No, I don't know if she died in there. I don't know where. I remember. I know that when I got up, he was gone.
And when was the last time you saw him alive?
The 5th.
What time? Ballpark?
I think because of my bike, Mama had to come pick me up and drop me off at work. So I was very late getting there, but I'd let them know beforehand. I know he was alive before I left.
You know he was alive when you left for work?
Yeah.
And you don't really know exactly what he was, but...
I think she managed to get there a little bit after 6. I managed to get to work around 6:35-ish.
So she says to you at 11:49 p.m. on 7/5, she says, please set your alarm for 6 a.m. I ended up dragging him back to a small room, that's talking about the closet, because I wasn't going to risk him having access to the tub or other things overnight. Wasn't he already in the tub? So what do you mean risk him having access to the tub overnight? He's still trying to be water. She says he's still trying to be stupid. But I will tell you more tomorrow while I take you to work, describing how many different ways I've proved that he's still faking. He's still doing it.
The thing was that yesterday, I had offered him a pizza roll. Because I wanted to truly test whether he was faking or not. And at first he didn't move. I'm like, okay, maybe this is, but then he moved and went to try and grab him. I'm like, okay, I don't even know. I don't know anymore.
Well, he wasn't thinking it, right? Because he died. He wasn't thinking it, unless your mom did something to him to kill him. Do you think she did that?
No, of course not.
Outside of not feeding him food and punishing him for months? That's what killed him, right? Or did she hold a pillow over his mouth and something?
No, of course not. She wouldn't.
Did she hold him by the throat and squeeze it until he died?
No.
So what killed him was not having food, not having access to food and malnutrition for months? How long did this go on for?
I don't know.
You feel good at all about any of this stuff?
No, of course not.
You can't, right?
I can't even live with myself.
But how do you feel about over and over and over again defending your mother about how good she is? Do you feel like that's the truth anymore? Because I'm quite disgusted by her.
Oh!
I'm disgusted by her.
Oh! She never wanted this.
Then how smart is your mother?
She's incredibly intelligent, radically loudy.
Right. Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever thought, how can a woman that's this smart, this intelligent, graduate from law school, how could she not know what's happening? How could she think this is fake? How does she not know she's starving? How does she not see that he's wasting away? And you here, you're telling me that you've got some mental health issues, but you graduated from high school, and it's very obvious to you that he's got malnutrition, right? It's very obvious to you. But your mom here's not seeing that, and she's a law school graduate, and she's very smart. Do you see what I'm looking at here? She's a liar.
And
She's lied to you about so much stuff. At some point, you need to stand up for yourself and realize she's the manipulator, she's the liar, she put you in this spot, she did this to your brother, using you. Do you not see that? That she used you to do this to your brother. Your mother used you. She's so smart. She's smarter than any of us here. She's smarter than me. She's smarter than any detective here. She's smarter than our chief of police here. She's smarter than all of us. And we're supposed to believe she didn't know what was happening? No. She didn't want him around anymore because he was too much of a problem. You know that's the truth. You can look back at it and see that, can't you? She didn't want him around anymore because he was too much work. That's the truth. And the second you start to believe that and understand that, then I think that's the time you can move forward in this case. Until you believe that, until you understand that, you're never moving forward from this. This isn't an accident. This didn't just happen. Your mom knew exactly what was happening to him, that he was wasting away. You saw it, didn't you? You saw it happening right in front of you.
It was never intentional.
For you? Or for her? Is she smart or is she not smart?
She's highly intelligent.
Then how is this not intentional? She thought, what did she think was going to happen then? He was just going to be good? And all of a sudden he was going to start behaving and doing everything she said because she didn't feed him food? What did she think was going to happen?
I don't know.
Exactly what happened is what she thought was going to happen. At some point he wasn't going to wake up.
She never wanted him dead. She loved him.
That's love to you? Everything that we talked about is love? How? Who do you love in your life?
My family.
Have you ever thought about starving them?
No, of course.
Have you ever thought about not giving them food as a punishment?
No, of course.
Have you ever thought about giving them hot sauce so that they would listen?
No.
Or they would do what was told? You somehow don't think those things are okay. Do you think those things are okay?
No.
Because everybody knows they're not. Except the smartest woman in the room. She's the one person that doesn't know that's not okay? You're joking, right?
No.
The smartest woman in the room is the one that doesn't know you can't do those things. No, it's all very intentional. The smartest woman in the room knows. She graduated secondary class from law school. She graduated with honors from college and from law school. But she doesn't know that not giving your kid food is going to make him sick and die.
We gave him food. She even told me to make sure that he had a good amount of. She would tell me on random days. They were never consecutive, I don't believe, for the hot sauce punishment. But other than that, it was always bread and rice. At one point, she even asked me to put some broth. I think that she wanted chicken, but we didn't have any, so I used beef for some rice. She cared. She never wanted this. We did.
But she sent her pictures of him looking dead, right? Looking almost dead.
Yeah.
9 minutes is close enough for me, because did this fool just say she cared because she told me to use chicken broth one time for rice, but we didn't have it, so I used beef? ... Do you want a cookie? Do you want some brownie points for that? No, I wouldn't give you those because you'd keep that from Timothy too. Like, what, you want a pat on the back for using beef broth one time to give him some rice? Oh yeah, we won't give you actually more food, just slightly more flavor than what you've had before. See, that's why I don't agree or believe the whole sandwiches and ramen and this and that, because you don't have any examples to pull from of actual meals that you gave him. Not even one. The best memories you can come up with to show that she cared was she told me to use broth in his rice one time. Then the detective says, "Do you think these things are okay?" And he says, "No." Then why did you do them? Because the truth is, we've been under this bad assumption or this naive assumption that he wanted to do good. They keep saying that they wanted what was best for him, not what was good for him. They believed what was best for him was obedience, was punishment, was trying to turn him into someone he can't be. And if that means you have to do bad deeds along the way, it's for the greater good. And that's probably what they told themselves all day, every day. Okay, but pause. Let's go back to the beginning of this and then work our way back here. From the top, he says, "Were there any food restrictions with your dad?" He meant stepdad, he meant Adam. Paul heard dad and thought the bio dad, and he said, "Yeah."
Was there ever food restrictions on, is it Eric? Dad? Yeah, Eric.
And then the detective corrected him and they moved on to the next subject. But he said, yeah, there were food restrictions with his bio dad, but he wasn't able to get into specifics about that, which just makes all of this even more complex of you're just, again, furthering trauma you went through and trying to justify it. I think I also heard that Shanda in her childhood growing up had food restrictions as a punishment. Hey, people out there, don't do that. Don't do that. Do not restrict your child's food as a punishment. If anything, get them nothing but healthy stuff and make them suffer that way. You want to eat up all my snacks? Go for it. We got celery sticks for days. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're not trying to restrict people's food or access to food. Actually, celery is not a good example because there's like nothing there. But there are ways you can make changes in your child's life without depriving them of food or any kind of major shift change like that. Find sugar-free alternatives if this is like a weight thing. If they're a kid and they're snacking too much, maybe come up with a snack time. Certain times where we will have snacks at this time. Oh, can I have this now? No, wait, you have snack time in an hour or whatever. You know what I mean? I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but there are so many things you could do beside any kind of food restriction. The way that you influence your child's development with food growing up is going to carry with them for the rest of their lives. If Timothy did survive, if he were saved, he would have a horrible relationship with food for the rest of his life. And even Shanda, Paul, and I don't know about G, but Shanda and Paul have a bad relationship with food as well. They judge all of their jailhouse food and say, oh, this is gross, this is nasty. I don't care. I hope it's Eve. I hope they spit in it. No, I'm joking. I don't hope that. I don't hope you are harmed in any way, but I do hope you do not enjoy those meals because you don't deserve to. You know what? Maybe after 15 years, 16, we're going to round up to 16, the span of Timothy's life, you can enjoy a meal. One. But the thing is, they do find things to enjoy. They have their commissary. They have this. They have that. But anyway, he also says, so only after Adam left, after his stroke, is when food restrictions started. Because the leash was off and they got to go back to what they know. And he also said, was the house messy? Baby, he read them. Was it disgusting as it is? Were y'all as disgusting when Adam was around? And the answer is no. And we actually have an affidavit from Adam, or an interview or something from Adam that he gave before he passed away. And so as I'm pulling clips in here, I'm doing a little more research here and there. So before I said I don't know how much Adam was aware after Timothy's murder, and it seems like he was able to live another year. He instantly divorced Shanda, was never on her side or tried to defend anything like that. And so I do want to read what he had to say, but first I want to go on another quick detour and look at these house photos. I was able to find like a little PDF of some of the crime scene photos, not all of them, but many. So I want to go in and look at this, I don't know, this house of horrors pretty much, and just see the living conditions that they were in. Because Shanda tried to downplay it as soon, and I didn't realize it because, you know, we only saw her interview or her body cam footage at first, so we didn't really see the whole house. And she's just like, oh, pardon the mess, I'm sure you've seen other houses way worse. And I was like,
come in here in a little bit.
I'm sorry, it's a little cluttered down there, but
You're fine.
I'm sure y'all have seen a lot worse.
Okay.
He said, okay, crickets. So apparently not, based off of these reports. Your house was disgusting, but you try to plant that in their mind of, I'm sure, you know, it's not that bad, just ignore that, you know. No, we shan't ignore it. So we'll take this little detour. We'll wrap up the next parts of these sections before finally getting back to the interrogation. Most people seem to like the little rabbit holes we go down, so buckle up. And I just want to issue a content warning that some of these pictures are disturbing and disgusting at the same time. So if you may be sensitive to that kind of thing, make sure to check the timestamps in the description. I know some people like to listen to my videos like podcasts, so this may be a go to listening mode only until we wrap up with these. And we'll dive in 3, 2, 1. All right, so looking through the crime scene photos, straight out the gate, they start with, here are the handcuffs. Here is, I believe, the door to Timothy's room or closet with an alarm on it. Take note of this alarm right here because a picture later, it's missing. Just disgusting, gross mess everywhere. Just filthy. And then these pills are Shanda's Adderall. So she made sure that she had her medication, but Timothy's, no. So then we have, I'm guessing this is Paul's room by the nastiness and the discombobulation. And so many toys up here, so many toys that Timothy is not allowed to touch whatsoever. And he's got his iPad on the floor, all this stuff. Another angle of it, just disgusting. So there's the iPad Timothy would get in trouble for touching, or one of them. I think they had like 1 million. There's that Santa Fe high school diploma. Paul Byron Ferguson is so proud of. Your middle name's Byron. All I can think when I hear Byron.
What is that? Hey, shut the hell up, sound like a siren. Come in here and sit, shut up.
But yeah, you got that diploma, and the whole time, none of them thought you were autistic. Goodbye. Someone's phone. I think that's like Adam's phone. The closet. See, so there's a dent in it. So it looks like he was trying to get out at some point, or he was injured at some point. Somehow something made that crater crack, whatever you want to call it, on the inside of the door where he would spend 90% of his day. Some stains. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. The bathroom, disgusting. Oh my gosh, just oh no, sorry. Okay, sorry. Yeah, more grossness. But that's what I want to know. So we have something like this. I don't think they could call anyone to that house to get like appliances fixed or any work inside done, or else this would all be revealed. Oh, casually, just another alarm, probably a vibration one, just tossed around. Torture techniques, we can't keep track of them. They're all over the place. Disgusting kitchen. There's the pizza that they said Timothy had 3 slices and there with cheese. Da, 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 da. This is gross. Okay, now I believe the rice because you got 2 rice cookers here. So, and a shit ton of bread. Jesus Christ. So they had it just out in the open. Made sure they were stocked on that. Just nasty. All over the place. I just don't get because in all of these messages, oh, well, here are the locks that were on the refrigerator. So when he's talking about the locks aren't sticky enough, it's because Timothy was able to pull it off to finally try to survive in some way. And oh, they got 2 locks for the freezer. So I guess this missing one, or like this one was the one he was able to rip off. So they had to go immediately replace it. What I don't get is they had Timothy doing chores all day, every day, and it still looked like this. And he would hawk eye watch him. And then he said he'd have to go behind him and clean stuff up. No, well, here's the freezer in the garage. Also, what is all this Dr. Pepper? I remember that's a whole thing. And honestly, I think Paul has a Dr. Pepper in this interrogation. What is it with killers and Dr. Pepper? I don't get it. But Dr. Pepper always shows up in these cases. I'm just saying that someone should do a study. All the bread and another pizza. So they had 3 people who are allowed to eat in that house, and we see 3 boxes laying around. So they had a surplus of food all the time, purposefully. Another angle of the bathroom. This camera is just terrifying to me. The one that like swivels and follows you. Oh, there it is. Oh, whoa. Let me see. Do we get a better angle? Okay, now I'm gonna come up here. Yeah, that is crazy. Also, here's the bread. Well, okay. Are they literally just giving him the smallest slices of bread in the world? Good. And there's the hot sauce. And it's just so casually next to household bathroom objects, like it's almost nothing, like it's meant to be there. It's not. You know what is meant to be there? A shower curtain. Really could not get through the house with this kind of mess. Just another speaker. Maybe that's the speaker she was able to speak to them through because it's right next to this camera. So another horrifying Big Brother reality. Oh, just casually handcuffs in the laundry bin, just so when he's talking about it was never intentional, he has to go through and get all of these things and interplay with all the zip ties. I didn't even know there's the zip ties right next to the bread and the hot sauce, for fuck's sake. Another camera just casually around. Closer look. And I'm guessing this is G's room. Why? Because it's the only clean one. Toys lining everywhere. The only room in the house that looks like it has some love. And even then, there's a fucking camera. Oh my gosh. You couldn't even get like a nanny cam or something that doesn't look this obvious. But we'll notice this is black and the other ones are white. Paul is not allowed to have access to this one, but can have access to all the others. That's the outside of the House of Horrors. There. Door, just ugh. Just the dirty Dirty kitchen. I'm guessing this porch, I'm guessing the stairs are out there because they needed to be hidden where people can't see. So I'm imagining it's over there. Well, look at that. Under the, what is it? Is it under the fridge or under some appliance? There's an empty bottle of the hot sauce. Just casually, well, we're done with it. Let's just toss it on the ground. And we're back to the door. Remember the alarm that was here that is no longer here right now? That's because those pictures were taken a day apart, meaning the first one, we're on what, 63? Let's go all the way back. This one, exact same door, was taken when they first got there. They see this alarm. Then the next day when they go back, no alarm. Wild. So you want to talk about intention, you want to talk about consciousness of guilt, and there's the hot sauce again. And look, that is how much of the hot sauce they've already used of this bottle. Good grief. So when he says we've only been using the hot sauce for a month or 2 months, I don't believe it because there's so many, unless you're just dumping it on everything, which they also are. So it's somewhere in the middle. The zip ties. What's this thing? I don't know. I know they saw that and were like, excuse me, why is this and zip ties and a camera in your bathroom when we just found a dead child in the closet? And a lot of these stains have been, I'm not going to say it, but they're cutting this out of the carpet, meaning my belief is they think this is blood. So how did that get there? Gross, disgusting. That's the empty bottle from there. At least the cabinet doesn't look horrible. Not great, but probably the cleanest thing in this house. All right, so those were the crime scene photos, or like just the easily accessible ones to the public. And the places, just as the detective said, absolutely disgusting. He read them to filth, but he only spoke facts. That's a horrifying place to live. All right, if you went on podcast mode, we are now officially back and the pictures are gone. So those were some of the crime scene photos, and that was a lot. So thank you for sticking through it. Now transitioning to the statement that Adam gave to the police. I'm not sure when he gave the statement, but I retrieved this from Zavgirl, so I want to hear his opinion on things because there are some very concerning things and eye-opening things that he mentions here. Statement, Adam Vander Ark. Adam advised he and Shanda met online and have been married for about 12 years. Adam advised he eventually moved to Oklahoma to live with Shanda. At this time, Shanda had supervised custody visits of her children due to sexual allegations involving 2 of her children. The allegations consisted of child CSC. The case was unfounded in Oklahoma. Okay, so this is probably in regards to what the teacher said when there was the allegation between Paul and Timothy, to where they had to separate Paul and make sure that he doesn't even go to the same school as Timothy. He says the case was unfounded, but I guess it wasn't unfounded enough to where she only had supervised custody visits. And I think she only had supervised custody visits of 2 hours. They said you cannot be left alone with her for more than 2 hours, which makes it more insane for the biological father to send Timothy to her when it had gotten this bad. Adam advised Shanda was very affectionate toward her children. Adam advised the physical affection often seemed inappropriate, such as having the preteen boys sit on her lap or long hugging. Adam advised shortly after their son G was born, Adam and Shanda decided to move back to Michigan. Shanda left the other children in the care of their biological father, who had custody of them. Adam advised blank moved in. I want to say Timothy, but I don't think the bar is long enough, so maybe it's advised Paul moved in with them in May 2021 after Timothy's biological father contacted Shanda. Timothy's father advised he could no longer handle Timothy and threatened to place Timothy in foster care if Shanda and Adam did not take him. Which now that kind of recontextualizes things for me hearing that phrasing. So they thought they were sending Timothy to Shanda and Adam, not just to Shanda. So it doesn't change by much, but I didn't realize that they were married for 12 years. That's a long time. And I remember Nolan said at his victim impact statement that he thought that Shanda had changed. And that's why he was blindsided by this, because I guess it's so many years had gone by without incident, and then they have another child, and it seems like he's growing up healthy, so they thought they were sending Timothy to Shanda and Adam. I do like to try to weigh things in the balance, so I will say that has some influence. I don't think they would have sent him to just Shanda. And the fact that none of this happened until after he left also leads credence to, I guess they were doing a good enough job. Adam advised Timothy was blank old when he moved in with them. Adam advised Timothy did not exhibit any behavior issues out of the ordinary for a teenage boy. Adam advised Timothy would sneak food at odd hours in the early morning, which, I mean, I'm sure happens, and I'm sure that's not always, like, that could be annoying at times, but never deserving of any of this. Adam advised he never observed any physical altercations between Paul and Timothy. Oh, well, if they're saying Paul's name, then that means that other one was Timothy as well. But they would occasionally argue. Adam advised the only surveillance camera he was aware of was located under, I'm guessing, G's bed where his desk was. The camera was placed in a fashion to observe G while he was doing schoolwork. Adam advised the only form of surveillance they used for G was a video baby monitor. This monitor was used for G when he was still a baby to ensure his safety mobility. Adam advised G never exhibited any behavioral issues, nor did he ever undress and walk around the house. So I'm guessing that is in relation to what Shanda and Paul's excuse was for having a camera in G's bed, was that he would undress and then run around everywhere. So they needed to know if he was going to do that, I guess, and a camera is the only way. I don't know. But it looks like they did have a camera to make sure he was doing schoolwork and a baby monitor. I mean, the baby monitor isn't that crazy to me. Adam advised he was unaware of any locks being attached to the refrigerator or chest freezer. Yeah, because this all happened after he left. Adam advised he was unaware of any other forms of video surveillance in the home. Adam advised he was unaware of the shackles located in the basement near blank's bed. I'm guessing Timothy or G. Adam advised he would not condone the use of any physical discipline. Adam advised discipline in the home for the boys consisted of sitting in their rooms for a timeout. Adam advised he was aware Timothy had bladder issues and would wear an adult brief. Oh, so he was in diapers before all of this. Okay. At least that makes things slightly better. I mean, not really, but at least it means that they didn't move to diapers just because he had gotten that thin and that they didn't care to give him a mattress and the tarp and all that mess. But he just had issues, which means it's like even crazier that they would get so upset over accidents when you know he struggles with that. He can't control that, but you just thought he should, and then if he couldn't, he should get punished for it. Whatever. Adam advised the last time he saw Timothy was about 4 months ago. Adam advised Timothy appeared healthy and did not appear to be malnourished. Adam advised when he was living at home, the residence was always clean and tidy, as he was usually in charge of the household chores. which, I mean, makes sense because when he left, it literally, the whole place went to shit. Yeah, so that was Adam's statement to the police. So that is just giving a little bit of his background and his feelings or opinions towards the situation, which, you know, opened my eyes to certain things and I think recontextualized others. So glad we went through that. So all of that was just to contextualize, was the house disgusting? The answer is yes. Well, I mean, the answer is the house is disgusting now. Was it disgusting back when Adam was there? No. And so then Paul says, you know, we try to get it cleaned up and we could do it for a little bit, but then something, No, maybe if you spent less time torturing someone, you could have actually cleaned and kept it that way. But alas. So he asks, does your mom like this? And he goes, no, she hates this. She never once enjoyed this, meaning she loved this. It was her favorite pastime, and pretending not to like it was also part of the joy of it. Miss me with that. And so while he's going, never once enjoyed, the detective just keeps listing all the things she did to just show the absurdity of saying that she didn't want to do it, she didn't like to do it, and she wished she didn't have to do it. And the end of that list was with ice baths, and he says she was going to have him sleep in that tub all night because that was the original plan. In the text messages, she wanted him to sleep in that ice bath tub all night. But we know by the cameras that he didn't. But right here is where the police introduced their theory of what happened. And it's not a bad theory. It's not correct, but it's not bad.
He didn't. No, he didn't die in that bathtub and you guys dragged him into that closet and waited for the morning to call the police. That's not what happened.
No, it's not.
Do you think she did that? Do you think that message is just a little bit suspicious? That she sent you at just about midnight that says, he's in the closet, I could drag him in there? You don't think he was already dying or dead at that point?
So that's basically their theory. They're looking at the text message that says he is going to spend all night in that tub. He died of hypothermia, and they're just trying to put two and two together. Either he died in the tub, she killed him, and then drug him into the room. That's what they thought would happen. And honestly, that is better than what actually happened. And we know what actually happened because her cameras were rolling, and she filmed herself dragging him back into the closet. And he was still alive. And Shanda was watching that camera like a hawk because apparently he moved some time during the night. And I don't even think he moved. I think his body just kind of slid down to the side. And Shanda goes in there and gets mad because she wanted to reposition him so she could see him clearer in the camera because she's a psychopath. And he wouldn't react at first, so she had one of the dogs go lick his face until I guess there was some muscle movement or he reacted in some way. He's like gasping for breath, and she tells him to stop making all those noises. And he can't because he's literally just gasping for air. So she decides she's going to cover his mouth, which is not dissimilar to the police's theory that, oh, did she take a pillow and smother him or something like that? To try to add to the, did she kill him before Paul went to sleep, basically, and then put him there to miraculously find him in the morning. But no. So she puts her hand over his mouth until he is forced to start struggle breathing through his nose. And the last words she says to him, the last recorded words that Timothy hears are, "See, you don't have to breathe that way, dummy." And then she leaves. And there's more that she said there, but we can dive into that more in another time. But yeah, probably some of the worst last words I can imagine to tell someone who has been through that much torture. And then in the morning, she's like, "Oh, baby doll, sweetie, are you okay?" Trying to wake him up. I'm like, don't baby name him now. Now that you have killed him, now you want to say, "Oh, sweetheart, this, oh, baby, this is a bad dream. This cannot be happening." Of course it can be happening because you made sure it would. But in that text he's talking about, he's like, isn't it suspicious that she said I needed to drag him to the closet because I wasn't going to risk him having access to the tub? So the police are confused because they're like, he's already in the tub. What do you mean access? But then Paul answers very softly underneath, he was talking about water, which is what we figured. But she was not going to risk him having access to the tub because he might have access to water that he's actually allowed to drink. Because even though he was in the tub for all the time, they wouldn't let him drink. And if he did, he'd get punished some more. And she said, in the morning when I'm taking you to work, I'll tell you all the ways that I proved he was faking it, but he's still doing it. It's so stupid. And so, quote unquote, proved he was faking it, you can equal that to mean I tortured him again to get a reaction until his body moved. And then I said that he was lying. There's one time she, quote unquote, proved he was lying because he couldn't stand up because he was too weak and already had motor function issues. And this was maybe like a few days before this. Or yeah, it's when they had pizza to tie this all together. So Paul wants to say, oh, he had pizza. We know he didn't. We know they purposefully kept it away from him. And then Shanda thought that she was going to taunt him and quote unquote test him, saying something along the lines of, if you stand up straight, I'll give you a whole pizza to eat. And he said yes, and like tried to straighten up. And of course, being the sadist she is, she said, see, I knew it. I knew you were faking it. I knew you were lying. Even though he probably used every ounce of strength to try to prove to her that he could stand up straight in order to get something. But no, she used that in order to, as her proof for him lying. Which then we still see echoed in Paul's actions the next day, the day he died. I wanted to test, so I brought out a pizza roll. And this was the cruel part, because again, the place was stocked with food always. So he made some pizza rolls for G, of course, and offered one to Timothy in the bath. And his mom asked him to do this as well, but he was completely on board and did it, obviously. And held it in front of him, the cooked one, until he tried to move forward. And that move forward, again using all of his strength, was him proving that he was lying. And I'm glad the detective called that out, being like, what does that mean? What do you mean he moved? Thus, he's lying about being unresponsive. And Paul says it in this, I wanted to test him. I just wanted to truly know it's not your responsibility to truly test anything. This is even more torture. Because what happens if he didn't respond? You were going to message him again. You were going to message Shanda again saying, oh, he didn't respond. And she would just have you do another test. Something even worse to prove that his body can still react to stimuli. And then the detective says, how do you feel, doing all this? How do you feel knowing all this? I hate myself. I can't even live with myself. Boy, goodbye. You are still living with yourself to this day. You absolutely can. So funny how once you know you're in trouble, now you can't live with yourself. The idea of being able to watch someone waste away, that's the other thing. So it's not like this, we were torturing him and we didn't know we pushed it too far, and then we woke up one day and this just happened. It was a very visually slow and at the same time fast process to witness someone go from a healthy weight into that state. And you woke up every day, you saw him wasting away slowly each and every day, you made it happen, and you felt nothing. So I'm not buying the act. And then he's like, do you feel good about defending your mother this whole time? You're nonstop defending your mother. Because he doesn't realize at this moment, he's not just defending his mother, he's defending himself as well, through the proxy of defending his mother. Because every time he says, my mother, she wanted to do this, we were doing this, we is always in the second part of the sentence, because he has always been a part of it. Truly, I don't think there's anything either of them did to him that the other one did not know about. Like, at all. Except for those little things he tried to say on the stand. I gave him some extra food. We know that was bull. So think about that now, because on the stand, I remember seeing, I was like, oh, good, he did have a heart. He tried. I mean, it was way too late by then, and he's still like a POS for doing any of that. But he realized the error of his ways, and he tried to do at least some good gesture on one of the worst days anyone could ever live through. But no, he didn't. Probably did exactly what Mommy said and gave him a few slices of bread. And so the detective is using a really brilliant strategy of reframing Shanda, being like, how smart is your mom? She graduated magna cum laude, which I also think that he used her intelligence to validate himself. So if she, this very smart, brilliant woman, thinks these horrible behaviors and actions are okay, then it must be okay. And I'm a normal person and I'm a good person, because if we both act and feel the same way and do the same things, she's smart, brilliant, and successful, so that must mean I'm smart, brilliant, and will be successful. It's just like something like that. Because he uses that as a crutch later to say, oh, she's so smart, so I thought she knew what she was doing, which on some level it was. But he thought if a woman this smart is giving him the go-ahead, then it can't be that bad. And that's why the detective frames her as the smartest woman in the room. The smartest woman in the room doesn't know any of this is happening. Of course she knows. The dumbest woman in the room knows. Then the detective says, your mother used you, which is true, but he didn't know this at the time. He also used her. Paul used Shanda just as much as she used him. Because as he said, back home, he had no devices. He had no way to release his rage and emotions and anger. Here, he gets his devices, he gets to yell at people, he gets to hit people, he gets to control people. And then says he was too much of a problem. That was the issue. And it's true. Timothy was too much of a problem for her, and she didn't know how to handle it. Why? Because Paul said earlier that they didn't talk to the bio dad because he was going to hurl every ounce of blame at her, which he should. But I believe that she thought she could handle him because she, almost lost her rights. She thought, oh, I can take him back and I'm going to do it right this time. And by do it right, meaning she's going to control him perfectly and that she's going to be able to do whatever she wants. She thinks she can, quote unquote, win at this and turn him into this robot, perfect human that can't exist. And when that didn't happen and she was, quote unquote, failing, she could not accept that. So she doubled down again and again and again. And Paul knows that. He's parroting this from one of the texts when Paul says, we need to send him to juvie. Why don't we just send him to juvie? Why don't we just call the cops? I mean, he says like he's never going to change. So why not get rid of the problem? Another example of Paul being more self-aware than Shanda in that moment. He knows nothing they do is going to change. So anytime they're searching for these perfect mythical punishments that will form him into some mythic creature they want him to be, he knows that's not possible. And he reinforces it in these text messages multiple times. He says, you saw it happen, and I love it because he's finger tapping so close to his head or face because Paul has completely crumpled, broken. The detective has him whipped and trained at this point, because now Paul answers every single question defeated. He answers how he's supposed to answer, absolutely, but he's actually having to confront it because these are truths he's known the whole time. And he dares say the good old faithful for all of these criminals, it was never intentional. There is nothing that has been more intentional I've ever seen in my entire life than the actions, the sustained actions they took, the money they spent, the effort and literally just elbow grease it takes to put and install all of these things. They're buying batteries, they're buying electrical cords, they're finding spaces and places to put this stuff, all the while living in filth. That place looked filthier than some hoarders' houses. So he says it was never intentional, and the detective was like, for you or for her? Again, he's trying to get him to flip on his mother. Just because he frames things certain ways in this interrogation does not mean that's actually how he feels. He holds Paul just as responsible in terms of committing the actions. We just all know that Shanda was the mastermind and that he was the crunk to her Yzma, literally. That did not, I did that as a joke earlier on, but it is the perfect dynamic to describe this. Except Crunk is like a fake villain. Paul is the real villain. She never wanted him dead. She loved him. She didn't want him dead. That's correct. She did not love him. We get to the love section. So she loved him. He goes, love? Who do you love? Is this love? Like doing any of this to love? Who do you love? I love my family. Would you do any of this to them? No. What do you mean, no? You did this to your, and this is why I keep harping on it, you did this to your biological brother. He was your family. But this just proves right here, you didn't see him as that. You did not see him as your little brother, your biological brother. You saw him as the problem that you wanted to get rid of, that you threatened almost daily, that you said you wanted to strangle and beat within an inch of his life so many times. And he adds that in so many variations to the end of the text that he's saying it, you know, as a technicality. He wants to say, I want to kill him right now, but he knows he's not supposed to. So he says, I want to beat him within a millimeter of his life. But it's okay because I don't actually want to kill him, even though that is the feeling deep inside. And it's just wild. So would you do this to them? Would you starve them? No. Would you make them eat hot sauce? No. Like, if you tried to describe these things and you swapped in G and you explain these things to Paul, he would be torn up, distraught, boo-hoo, crying, rolling on the floor, a mess. As you should, because if something like this happened to anyone, you should be distressed. But for Timothy, he meant nothing to you. At least at that point. He might mean something to you now on reflection and whatever. I don't really care about that, because that only helps you now. You caring for Timothy does nothing for anyone now. We needed you to care for him when he was under that monster's reign control, never-ending surveillance. But you picked up the Scream mask, the Jason mask, the Michael Myers mask, and you donned the villain hood just to pick up that sadist hat and gleefully join in on the fun. So for you to dare say, no, of course not. What do you mean, of course not? We can't trust your of course anything. You've done nothing but lie this entire interrogation while also claiming to have told the truth. That's the wildest thing. He says after this that he told the truth in this interrogation. It's like, no, you did not reveal, I mean, you filled in the timelines, but you didn't really reveal any truths in this interrogation that they weren't already aware of. That's why the questions were very tailored and honed in. So more than intelligence gathering, which was the primary focus of this to get questions answered, they were just coming in here to get you to confess to everything. And they did. Which brings us back to where we started in this side tangent that turned into a whole other video. Do you think those things are okay? No. All right, now we only have 2 or 3 big chunks left to get through this interrogation, so I'm going to try to let it play as long as I can because this video has taken me way longer than I ever needed it to finish, and I need to get Paul Byron. No, it was all bull.
That's your brother.
Yeah.
That's June 13th, less than a month ago. You sent this picture to her and you said, he's looking like a skeleton, we need to give him more food. But you guys didn't give him more food over the next couple weeks. You guys gave him less and more punishment and less bread and more bread with hot sauce. That's what really happened. You reached out to her and said, this is scary looking, right? You probably thought, he can barely walk. You sent a picture of his legs, right? You sent this picture of his legs to your mother, right here. You sent this to her. And what'd you say? Something along the lines of, no wonder he can barely stand up or walk. Look at that. And your mother being smart and intelligent and the smartest woman in the room, she didn't do anything about that? Didn't think about taking him to the doctor? Didn't think about, we have to give him some more food, like, seriously now? Instead, what do you think she did? She gave him less and more punishment. Until what? He ends up dead. And what did she tell the police? He was always wearing baggy clothes, so I didn't notice anything until last night. Another just blatant lie. Another blatant lie. If this was all an accident, why would she lie to us? If this was all an accident, why wouldn't she just say, we were having a really hard time with him, I thought he was okay? No, she knows that he looked like this, that he looked like this. Look at his face right there. That's not who your brother looked like, is it? No. He didn't look like that. Does that look like it? That looks like somebody in a casket that you see at a funeral. That's what that looks like. And it's sickening and disgusting. And you sent this picture to her too, didn't you? You sent that to her, didn't you?
Yeah.
You sent that to her on July 5th. Right before the day leading up to him being found dead. Does he look like he's okay right there?
No.
Why'd you send that picture?
I was concerned.
Yeah, once again, you're not the smartest person in the room.
And
You're concerned. Did she do anything about it? No, you know what she said? He's going to sleep in the bath all night tonight. He's sleeping in the bath all night tonight. The smartest woman in the room. He's getting the bathtub all night for punishment. Make sure the shower curtain's away so I can see him. And what happens later on that night? At some point between the time this picture is sent and the time you wake up in the morning, he dies. Because he's alive right here, right?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
He's alive. Did she tell you to snap him and see if he blinks? Or is that a different time?
That was...
Is that this time or a different time? You smack him in the face to see if he's faking it?
I was trying to see what was going on, trying to see if he would even respond if what was going on with him.
Because to you, not the smartest person in the room, to you, you already know. This isn't okay. This is a dying person. This is your brother dying. This is your brother. And he's almost dead.
Another thing, I kept sitting him up.
Yeah.
And I would come back a little later and I would notice that he actually had moved himself back down. I wasn't sure if it was intentional or if he was trying to clear up his airway maybe.
But just move it. Well, what is that supposed to mean? Well, he must be okay because he moved a little bit? That's where we're at?
I wasn't sure.
He's so far gone that you're like questioning if he moves a little bit, he must be okay? Come on.
I wasn't sure.
Where did that stuff come from? Where did that come from? Didn't your mother send you messages that said, I saw him move? I saw him. Did she send that to you?
Yes.
Then what does that mean to her? That it's fake? Is this fake to you?
No.
Is your brother lying on the floor dead? Is that fake to you?
No.
You know who it didn't matter to at all? You know who I didn't see shed a single tear the whole day I was there? Your mom. Did you see her cry a real tear?
Yes.
I saw a whole bunch of fake. You know what my job is to see? Fake. You know what I saw a whole bunch of? Fake. Because at the end of the day, your brother gone, that's a problem for her that's gone. She never was trying to solve this problem. She was never trying to make him into this perfect person because she's smart enough to know that isn't going to happen. He's never going to be you. He's never going to be because he has too many problems. He's not going to be that. She's smart enough to know that. That's how we ended up here. The smartest woman in the room took advantage of you. And she asked you to do these things over and over and over again. And this is the woman you're sitting here saying she cares so much. Does she really though? She asked you to handcuff your brother, pour hot sauce in his mouth. She asked you to pour hot sauce on his penis. Your mother asked you to do those things. Because she cares so much. She put you in that spot. And now you're right in the middle of an investigation in which your brother died. And this is criminal. This is a crime. brother deserve to die?
No.
Should he be dead right now?
No.
Is he dead by the choices of others?
Yeah.
Who made those choices? Who made the choices for him to be dead right now? Did you make some of those choices?
No.
Who made those choices?
Mama?
Yeah. She did, didn't she? That's what's real.
That's not real.
Now, did you do some of the things she asked you to do?
Yes.
Absolutely you did.
And does that put you knew what was best?
Does that put you in the wrong? Doing those things?
Does it?
It does. It puts you in the wrong.
Yeah.
It does.
Because
But you thought you knew what was best. You just said that. I heard you say it.
I thought she knew it. I thought maybe it would somewhere would change.
Because she's smart, right? And she knows what she's talking about, and she loves you, all of you, and she cares about all of you. But when you really step back and you look at yourself and Timothy, were all three of you treated the same?
No.
Was one of you treated like, who really cares? Who really cares? Punish him, punish him, punish him, punish him. Ice bath, hot sauce, handcuffs, closet. He lived in a closet. You said he spent most of his day in a closet, peeing on himself, pooping on himself, eating only bread, sometimes only with hot sauce on it. It's the hottest hot sauce you can get your hands on. That's life. He's probably relieved that he's dead. He's probably relieved because that's torture. He was tortured by you guys for months. Tortured. Why? Because he was different than you guys? Because he couldn't follow directions? Because he couldn't follow your mom's rules? Is that why? He stole food? Is it that big of a deal? Is this food worth killing somebody over?
No.
That's what happened here. Over stealing food and not following rules. You said that your dad's very controlling. You know who was also very controlling? Your mom's controlling you without you even knowing it. That's narcissistic. Your mom controlled you and you had no idea. You thought all this stuff you were doing was for your brother. This is going to be better for my brother. This is what's best for my brother. Those are the things you came in here saying. Is that real?
I don't know what is or isn't anymore.
It doesn't seem real to me. It doesn't seem real to me at all.
Because it isn't. Now, at this point, I did lose a good chunk of my video, and I don't really remember what I was saying to transition into the next part. So I'll just give a little recap until I connect it to the next part. And the next part I have is discussing the June and July text messages. So I'm going to try to fill in the blank until I can transition there. But yeah, this 10 minutes can be summarized down to he is trying to get Paul to feel anything, and he still hasn't. He's putting on the mopey face and looking down, but that's not actually feeling. Imagine if you heard these details happening to someone you love, you would be beside yourself. You would be at a loss. You would either completely numb it all out and push it all away, or you would be broken down. He is unfazed. The only thing that is making him upset and agitated are not the facts themselves, but the officer raising his voice at him and holding his feet to the fire of saying, you did this. These are your messages. These are your pictures. And normally people, when they come to that realization of the weight of their actions, they are shocked that they could even allow themselves to do that. He is saying that, but you would feel it, right? Like no one is getting a genuine vibe from this. Okay, sorry, that's just me projecting. Some people are. But to me, I do not get any true sense of remorse or empathy over the death of his brother. If you were shocked or didn't want this to happen, emotions would show somewhere, somehow. And the thing is, he has shown some emotion in here. Whenever he talks about the father, he clams up. And when he was describing the worst beating he ever got, he literally got somewhat emotional in recounting that story. But hearing how much your brother suffered brings nothing. Okay, Linda was not having it, and neither am I. All of this is bull. When he said, I don't know what's real anymore, stop. That is you just trying to sidestep everything and say, I can't answer anything else because everything I say is just going to make me look worse. So let me just act like I'm so distraught that I don't know which way is up, which way is down. You knew yesterday. And it's because we were all naive when first looking at this situation. It is clear Shanda is the monster, psychopath, sadist that she is. Paul is more covert. It is not inherently seen. So when you see someone as overtly displaying all of those behaviors, you want to assume that no human could be able to rationalize doing these things without being coerced or without fighting back mentally in some way. So everyone, including myself, just believed that he must have been controlled by that monster in some way. And that's why he's having all these revelations, because he just has no idea how he didn't notice all of these things before and all of these new revelations, and I don't know what is real. You knew what was real every single day. Now you're confused because you actually killed him, and there's no way to talk yourself out of this. But you need to make Shanda look good so that you can look good by proxy and say that we didn't want this to happen at all. He forced us to because he was so deceitful and bad and sneaking food and tearing plastic bed coverings off of mattresses. Which, side note, someone in the comments brought up a good point, that because Timothy was autistic, not only would it just regularly be uncomfortable to sleep on a plastic mattress, but the noise and the texture of the plastic could also have been overstimulating for him, and that's why he wanted to get to the actual mattress itself. But of course, this was taken as the ultimate act of defiance. And the detective says he was never going to be you, he was never going to be G. And Paul knew that. He brought that up in multiple text messages beforehand. We should send him to jail. He's never going to change. He keeps acting this way, and it's because we're doing this and doing that. And then the irony of the jail part is you were talking to yourself, saying he keeps thinking he can do these things and he's not going to jail, even though we threaten it, and he keeps doing. That is exactly in response to your actions. You thought you could literally starve a boy to death and keep going, and you weren't going to go to jail? There was no other outcome but for this to happen, because you couldn't get anyone else to help you, and even if you did nurse him back to health, you couldn't let him out or talk to anyone else. If he told anyone even a fraction of the things that you did to him, your lives would be over. You never planned to let him see anyone ever again. You knew this was a possibility. You thought you could just keep it up for years and years and years to come, because Shanda was determined to win this one-sided, cruel, sadistic game, and Timothy was going to lose. He was going to submit any way she wanted him to. And when Paul said he's never going to change, Shanda said, like, oh, are you doubting me? Are you doing this? Like, you think I can't fix him? And he goes, I'm not doubting you. I'm doubting he will not change. Paul knew then and there this would never get better. Okay, but I'm pretty sure that I bridged the gap from what I lost, and now we're going to transition into the final set of text messages from June and July. Apologies if I repeat some of these points later on, but, you know, it happens. June messages. June 13th. Timothy tried to sneak out, but I caught him. Timothy tried to sneak food. I yelled at him, and then he became momentarily unresponsive, and then I saw this. Paul sends Shanda pic of emaciated Timothy. He's bone thin, mama. I think honestly we need to actually feed him. Note, the only time in months Paul has shown any concern for Timothy, which should be very, very telling, but not telling enough to get them to actually stop. Because the next day, June 14th, the concern does not last. June 14th. Oh no, he apparently snuck up while I was asleep. I know because I woke up and saw him on G's iPad, and he apparently ate my Doritos. I'm literally not dealing with him because I might just strangle him. June 16th. Nothing. He hasn't eaten today because he wouldn't shut up. He kept asking for food, and I kept telling him no, but he wouldn't stop asking, and he wouldn't stop setting off the freaking notifications. Okay, I'm about to scream at Timothy. Can you tell him to hold still, please? June 13th. At 5:03, Shanda asks Paul if he has let Timothy out of his room at all today. No. Jesus Christ. June 17th. He hasn't asked to go to the bathroom or said he's hungry. June 19th. I told him 30 minutes ago I would feed him if he could hold still for 5 minutes, but he hasn't managed 10 seconds, which is bull crap. June 27th. He does look really thin. Another example of self-awareness of he knows he shouldn't do it, he's doing it anyway. That's right, Linda. At any one of these moments, because I feel like people are giving him brownie points for these messages where he just says he looks thin or maybe we should do something. Then do something. Then do something. You had way more control than you're trying to let this detective know now. And it would be one thing if he let up at all, if he noticed these things and was trying to be, I don't know, even like slightly kinder with the punishments or not as cruel. But then no, literally that same day, June 27th, real quick, he wouldn't headbutt me because he knows I'll headbutt him back at least 5 times harder. And how is an emaciated boy headbutting anyone? If their heads clashed, if anything, it was an accident, and they took that as malicious and intentional because they took everything he did as malicious and intentional. And so I'll headbutt him back at least 5 times harder. Shanda didn't force you to write that. Shanda didn't force you to react like that. And that just tells me that you've done this in the past, where if he's tried to stand up for himself or try to do anything back, you smack him down 5 times as hard. Next message. That's why he did it to you. I'd say because he knew you wouldn't hit him back. Which I don't believe. I do believe she hit him multiple times. But if you're saying that you believe she doesn't hit him, that means you're the only one hitting him then. Constantly. Same day. Make sure you've got the camera on in his room as well, because he tried grabbing one of them, so it's gonna probably try to grab the other. I fall asleep for not even a full hour. He's pulling this crap. Apparently not. I can't even put him against the wall to sleep. And this was 8 days before he died at this point. No remorse, nothing. If I don't get to sleep, you'll have to hold me back from strangling a child. June 29th. I hate to be insensitive, but can you come out here and deal with Timothy? He tried to steal some chips and I'm not going to deal with him right now. He's already pushing every one of my buttons. June 30th. The whole shaking and I need support crap and I'm ready to slam him into the ground. 6 days before he died. On June 30th. And you're still threatening him like that. So you're telling me this is Paul 7 days after that message was sent of I need support, he's shaking and I'm ready to slam him into the ground, and he wants me to believe that now he always loved him. He was only doing what his mom wanted him to do, what he thought was best. His mom never made him send a single one of these messages. The rage inside of him did. Same day, he also wet the bed and is covered in urine. You mean the tarp you gave him? You dare call that a bed? Same day, would you say a 5-minute shower with the curtain open so I can watch? What? This is what I'm talking about. I don't like this at all. I don't like this whatsoever. You're trying to say he needs a 5-minute shower because he had an accident. Okay, that's not horrible. Clean up. That could be nice on the surface, but with the curtain open so I can watch. What on earth is an emaciated child going to do in a shower for 5 minutes that you are so worried you need to watch? Because we all know it sounds just as nefarious as it probably was. And we're going to go ahead and do July as well. So here are the July messages highlights. July 1st. I literally yelled into the speaker for 5 minutes to get him to wake up, and then had to go drag his butt out of bed, which is harder than it sounds because it reeks of urine down there. I'm ready to kill Timothy. I'm not gonna, but he left his peed and pooped in under thing in the freaking bathroom and I stepped in it. That's a you issue. You should have been paying attention to your surroundings, but no, you're going to blame it on him as you did everything else. I cleaned my foot, but I'm already at my limit. I had him clean the counters and do the dishes. Where? We don't see a clean thing in that entire house, which is what's wild to me. So like, they're constantly honing in on these chores to force him to do things that he physically cannot do, and then judge him when he physically cannot do them. I already given 4 pieces of bread earlier. I know he's not walking fine. He's still doing a whole wonky walk. July 2nd. What do I do if he doesn't finish cleaning in the assigned time? See, he's checking ahead of time. He is already predicting Timothy is going to fail because we're setting a time limit. It's not even just you need to clean these things. It's you need to clean these things in the time limit we provide you with the strength you don't have. And because every single test was a trap, he's already asking ahead of time, hey, what's the next punishment I can do when he falls into this trap that we already laid for him? Same day. So apparently this hot sauce isn't just Carolina Reaper, it's also Trinidad Scorpion Chili Pepper. You're just now noticing? You go through bottles and bottles of this shit for months and you don't even read the back? So he is starting to show more concern leading up to this, but that does not outweigh the lack of concern he shows. July 5th, literally the day before he dies. Shanda complains that Tim is not moving from the closet as she ordered. Sorry, I'm just really done with this crap. I know you're trying, Mama, but he's just too selfish. He's either going to make me lose my job or just royally tick me off. And this is him 2 days later. He's full of it. Okay, and no, he's not responding. It's the same old BS. This is after Shanda asked him if he was actually worried about Timothy at all, because he kept bringing it up, and Shanda's a psychopath, so she finally said, well, if my psychopathic son is also saying multiple times that he in essence is worried about him, let me just ask point blank, are you worried about him? Because again, this is that spousification. They were on an equal level. If he was really worried about him and he had said, I'm super worried about him, we should do something, they would have done something. At this point, I don't think they could save him, honestly. If he didn't die the next day, he was probably going to die within the next week. But to that, Paul says, nope, maybe if I wasn't so angry, then maybe. And that's a big if. Translation, he knows you should do something, but he is so mad he does not care. He has threatened this boy's life so many times, he does not care. I don't know, I'm just tired of him being such a nuisance. Isn't he already miserable, and it's all his doing? His eyes do have a slightly glazed look. So showing some slight concern again, maybe you should do something, but no, next message. Never in my life have I ever wanted to beat someone so bad. Same day, he's still being stubborn. I'm done. I can't deal with him anymore. He's doing this to tick us off and make us give up, and at this point, I'm ready to beat him within an inch of death and go to work. Same day, I'm done. I'm not dealing with him another second today or I might snap. And that was one of his last messages. And then on July 6th, Shanda texts Paul at 6:09 a.m. to wake up and check on Timothy. Then 6:13, Shanda texts that Timothy's door alarm is going off, which I don't know what that means because Timothy died throughout the night, so it wasn't him who set the alarm off, but whatever. So those were the last of the highlighted texts that I have, the June and July texts. So when I read these and I see this little act 2 days later, you can keep it. I don't care. But keeping these messages in mind, we can now break down the rest of it, and then you'll see how that carries over into the rest of the interrogation. But the police have read all of these and the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of texts that I didn't read before this, which is why I'm saying, and I've been saying this whole time, that this detective has shown so much restraint. There are so many detectives and interrogators that will come in hot and just lay into him from moment one. He held back, he got every confession he needed, and now he laid into him and telling him exactly how he really feels. So then with the computer screen, he says, look at your brother, look at his face. That looks like someone who has been in a casket. And these are extreme descriptors you never want to use haphazardly. In this case, it tracks. It does. So they're using these descriptors just to try to get you and get him to understand how bad this truly is and how disgusting they think he is for being able to see someone in such a state and to keep going and say those messages anyway. And that's why I say anytime he's trying to absolve Paul and say, I see, you cared about him, you're not actually as bad, you're not me, that's just bull, and to get on his side so that he feels comfortable snitching on his mom, basically. And it worked. Because throughout most of this, Paul thinks that it's just, and you see it in his responses here crank up of, I thought she knew what was best. I thought this. I thought I was doing this. I thought I was doing that. And he's like, I was concerned. And he probably was, to a degree. And then that concern immediately disappeared. And that's the dangerousness of Paul. You never quite know what he knows and how he feels. Because he understands more than he lets on, and he also doesn't reveal the anger that he expresses often when no one's looking. Brought up the shower curtain message from Shanda of he's going to sleep in the bath all night. Make sure to remove the shower curtain so I can see it. That just seems so standard to them. They would do anything to further humiliate him, any chance they could. So of course, not only are you going to have a punishment bath, but we're going to watch you. We're going to stare you down, and we're going to yell at you. We're not going to act like they were just sitting there silent the whole time. If he moves in a way they don't like, if he does something they don't like, of course they're going to let him know. Of course they're going to shame him and insult him in the moment. So then he moves on to, did you smack him around to see if he reacts? And then we get a long pause, and we know long pauses mean yes. And then he goes, I was just trying to see what was going on. I was scared. And it's like, okay, cool. You probably did that. And we know you did that the morning that he was found dead. And that's not super uncommon, right? Like if someone's unresponsive to, within reason, smack their face, to think if that would wake them up. But he was way far gone. His eyes were open. He knew that wasn't going to work. And I think he's about to get in it, but it's one thing to smack him to see if he's responsive. What about all the other times you hit him? And Paul's going to have to admit to that. And what's his response to this so far, besides these little da-da-da-da? I kept sitting him up in the bath, but he actually moved himself down. Not sure if that was intentional. It doesn't matter if it was or not. You took it as intentional. And that's when the detective snaps, like, just moving? What is that supposed to mean? You are so far gone that you think him moving an inch of his body means he is intentionally doing it and it's all an act. That's why he said earlier, I should have checked to see if he was okay by checking to see if he was at least breathing. Because if he was breathing, if he was moving, then he's okay in their eyes. And then he confronts him, is this fake to you? Is your brother dead? Is this fake to you? And he says, no. 2 days ago, you would have said yes. And then he goes into the fake tears Shanda had of, have you seen her actually cry? Paul tries to say yes in this. But how would Paul know? He hasn't actually cried. None of them actually cried. Maybe G, but we don't know. And so he lists all the things that she has him do. She had you handcuff your brother, which led to him finally saying out and loud, your brother is dead. This is criminal. They've been ducking and dodging it. We all know it, but he is flat out saying, this is a crime. You are involved in a crime. What you did was criminal. Should your brother be dead? No. Who made those choices? Long pause. What does long pause mean? Me and my mother, which is true. Both of them made the decisions that led to Timothy dying. Both of them. And both of them had the ability to stop it at any moment. He just revealed in that text that he knows Shanda won't hit Timothy, which I don't believe, but he believes it. Meaning he knows she won't hit him either. If he ever really wanted to save his brother, he could overpower her and get help. But he refused to. So then the officer says, did you make some of those choices? He quickly says no, because he knows exactly where he's going and how far this is, and he's been trying to sidestep it to his mom the whole time. And so he asks again, who made those choices? Mama? Yeah, she did, didn't she? And that is correct. She made most of these decisions. But he agreed with them. And I'm glad he brought up, he lived in a closet, where he had to pee, poop, and only got bread with hot sauce there. See, these are things that earlier he just like nodded at and like tried to rationalize and say, like downplay it as though, oh no, I get it, I understand, keep going. But he was enraged about it the entire time. Like, you don't even understand, you had your brother sleeping in a closet. Leading to the ultimate question he has been dodging this entire time. Does that put you in the wrong? And what does Paul say? Does it?
I don't know. Now, did you do some of the things she asked you to do?
Yes.
Absolutely you did.
And does that put you knew what was best?
Does that put you in the wrong? Doing those things?
Does it?
It does. It puts you in the wrong.
Yes, Paul Byron Ferguson, it does. It absolutely puts you in the wrong, which makes you just as criminal as she is. And I think this is the first time he says torture. We've been saying it this whole time because that's what it is. He said he was tortured by you guys for months. You guys, not your mom, not you. You guys both equally tortured. Why? Because he was different? Yes, that's exactly the reason. Because he was not like the others, and she couldn't control him like that, and she couldn't stand it. Then the most practical question, is food worth killing someone over? He says no. That's exactly what happened here. None of this, nothing he could have ever done was worth this whatsoever. And I'm glad he calls out his characterization of the dad. You keep saying your dad is controlling and this and that. Your mom is just as controlling and manipulative. Which is what I said back to talking with the money situation. My dad forced me to give him half my paycheck. She just asks me for it. Same thing, different types of control. And your mom's was passive and manipulative, and she used that passive and manipulative behavior to get you to go to depths of depravity that most horror movies don't even touch. And that brings us back to the beginning of this section of, you came in here saying you thought this was what's best for him. You said you loved him so much. Now we're at the end of this interrogation, and we all know it was all bull, which is why he says, and we echo his same sentiment, doesn't seem real to me at all.
Did you ever hit your brother?
I did.
Yeah.
But every time I would come back, I would apologize. The bruises on him were not me. I know that much. If it was anywhere, it was here. And never, there was a spot here, but that was from when he was a child. I'm not sure which parent it was in his crib. He was laid there while his head was still fresh.
Okay.
And so that scar on the back of his head is...
That's an old scar.
Very, basically birth.
When was the last time you hit him?
Probably the 5th when I was trying to see if he would respond.
Okay. And where was that at?
That was while he was, I think, in the tub.
But where did you hit him at? On the side of his face?
Yeah.
Did you ever smack him, or what kind of hit?
It was sometimes this, and I think once or twice it wasn't like full force, but it was like to try to see if he would respond.
Did you ever punch him in the head?
No.
Because there's some evidence that somebody hit him in the head pretty hard.
Where? Is his skull? Because I know that I would never try to actually injure him at those points.
What really happened? How did he get that injury in his head? Did you hit him once a little harder than you maybe wanted to? It's okay, man.
Yeah, I remember I kept trying to pick him up after I got him out of the closet, and I think at one point he actually scratched where I pulled away, and he fell, and I think it happened several times, like he was trying to get out of my reach.
Yeah. When was kind of the last time you really hit his head hard or something?
I think it was, I was trying to get him into the bath for the ice bath thing. And yeah, he sort of, I thought he squirmed, but maybe it was something else. I don't know, but he slipped out of my hand and hit his head on the ground. But
what part of his head did he hit?
Was it the sides? I don't know the exact region, because by the time I heard the thud, I was literally about to turn around because I had to stop for a moment to breathe. I was frustrated. I never wanted to end this.
But the injury to his head, that's not what killed him, okay? But what killed him was not eating. But when we talk about this injury to his head, I just need to know the truth of what really happened, because what you're telling us doesn't make a lot of sense. What really happened to his head? The medical people, there's a medical examiner telling you that isn't what caused it, but that was there. They just noted that, so I'm just curious what really happened.
I don't know.
Was there like a hard punch or something when you were mad at him?
If I ever was smacking over the head, it was with an open palm. I never closed my fist.
Maybe like on this one day when you wouldn't?
No.
There's never one time where you hit him in the head?
No.
With a fist?
I would long to, but I would walk away because I knew that if I did something like that, I would not only regret it, but if I knew that if something like this had happened and I had never even been able to apologize.
Right. So where did he hit his head at? You have to remember. You said it was just a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Where did he hit his head at?
I think each time, I'm not sure. I know at one point, I think once it was on the side, another time it was the other side. I'm not sure if there was any in the back, but because
where do you hit his head? Like
normally it was right here for me.
Okay.
Just either side a little.
Remember the time you were so mad that maybe lost a little bit and hit harder than that, because this is a serious injury.
I wouldn't hurt him. Not like that. No, not even if it was on purpose. I didn't. If it was that accidental that it happened, I don't think I would have even realized at this point until someone had probably told me.
Did you ever see your mom hit him?
No. She never raised a hand to him that I know of.
Okay. Did she ever ask you to hit him? Or ever ask you to punch him physically?
No.
By hurting him like
no.
Fists or anything like that?
No.
So what's your best guess on how this injury happened to his head? This is a severe injury, so it's not this. It's not a slap, not even a hard slap.
If it wasn't for making his head on the floors and...
What part of his head hit the floor? That's what I don't understand.
It might have been the back at one point, but the thing is that when he was on the ground, his head would constantly loll to the side. So if it was...
After, how long was it like that where it rolled to the side? After his head or...
And barely moments after this he fell.
Do you think of anything else about this?
I don't know. Just feel like I could have done something. I should have put my foot down at some point. I loved him so much.
What would have happened if your mom could put your foot down? What would have happened?
I don't know. Maybe something would have been different. Maybe he would still be alive. I promised him before the whole thing with Mom and Dad that I would protect him, but I failed so hard.
You are absolutely right about that, Paul Ferguson. You promised him before Mom and Dad that I would protect him, and I failed so hard. You could not have failed harder than this in terms of protecting your little brother from your abusive mother and yourself. And I believe he may have meant it once upon a time, but after Adam left, he didn't whatsoever. So this last little section covered extended, did you hit your brother? And they really focused in on that. And the crime scene photos we saw earlier, when they cut out that little square in the carpet, I wonder, and I said I thought that was a blood stain. I wonder if they thought that was from Timothy or not, or from this head injury. But the medical examiner examined him and revealed that there was a severe head injury. And Paul wants to act like, oh, I didn't really hit him. You know, I slapped him here and there, but because after he asked him, did you hit your brother? Long pause. What do long pauses mean? Guilty. And he's like, but every time I would come back and apologize. Red flags everywhere. People, listen up. If someone hits you, especially multiple times, and comes back to you and apologizes and says, it's okay because I apologized to you, get out now. Because absolutely not. No, you're not just going to hit people and then go back there and say, I'm sorry, so it's okay, and then I'm going to hit you again. And I'm wondering, is that what he meant when he kept saying he keeps living in the past and he won't let the past go? I mean, yeah, I hit you all these times, but I said I'm sorry. So let the past go. And then said the bruises on him were not me. One, how do you know there were bruises on him? I mean, you do know because you observed his body daily. But he didn't bring that up. He says there's like a head injury, not that there were bruises all over him. So thank you for confessing to that as well. And he said the last time he hit him was in the ice bath the day before he died. So not only do they have him in this ice bath, not only are they putting hot sauce down his throat, not only are they smacking him, not only are they repositioning him, shaking him, trying to prove in all of these ways that his unresponsiveness is an act. Not only are you holding a pizza roll in front of his face to entice him to move, it's all of these things. And more. The and more is because we didn't know, I didn't know, that he had fallen on the ground while you were, basically fighting with him to put him in the ice bath that he clearly did not want to be in. And you say he fell and hit his head, and that you had to pause because you had to go breathe. You had to go breathe and calm down because you were frustrated. You didn't give a damn about whether he were injured or not. And what about one of those texts where you're talking about you want to slam him on the ground? Maybe you did. And then he said on the ground, his head would just kind of slump to the side. Call the effing police. How many times did this happen where you all saw he was clearly injured and just kept going? Didn't care about it at all. Had the nerve to say, I would never actually injure him, when you did nothing but injure him constantly. And so then we see that the detective reverts back to his nice self when he says, did you hit him once too hard? And he's going to be like, it's okay, it's okay. You know, you can reveal the truth to me, which is another smart tactic, because once you've gotten animated and you've gotten into those bigger emotions and you've let the person you're interrogating have it, it is not easy to just switch back to the nice cop deal in order to get an answer to a very important question. I thought the interrogation was over way back when, and he was just letting Paul confess to anything else, and he was. But maybe he always planned to end with this question of, aside from all of this, why does he have a major head injury? And they said he has a scar from when he was a baby. That would not be a major head injury right now, seeing how he is 15. So they are not talking about the scar. Then he had a nerve when he's talking about how he fell on the ground to say, I picked him up and he scratched me and kept trying to leave my grasp. I wonder why. He was fighting for his life but had no strength at that moment. And his big brother, who's supposed to protect him, said, don't worry, I'm going to put you in an ice bath. That'll save you. That'll make you better. That's what's best for you. Because then he decided, he said, I never wanted any of this. Again, he's just recycling those words that he said so many times. We've already disproven that. So he glosses right over it, and he does tell him that head injury did not kill him. And you hear Paul breathe a huge sigh of relief of like, oh, because he didn't directly kill him. Because he's been sidestepping that whole time of, he may have been dead before I even got home. Who would have known? And so now he gets to continue to sidestep it. But he was like, but he did starve. And you can hear Paul whisper, he starved?
But the injury to his head, that's not what killed him, okay? But what killed him was not eating. He starved. But
like, how are you confused about it? You did that to him purposefully. I would always hit him with an open palm, never a fist. And then he says, I would long to, but I would walk away. And I imagine sometimes, or most of the times, he did walk away. By the text messages, it's, I want to hit him. Please let me hit him. Please, And she has the whole place cameraed and monitored. So she would probably be able to see him if he was just hitting him constantly out of nowhere. Actually, who knows? But the phrase, I would long to, is absolutely correct. You were longing to assault your brother any chance you could. And now you're over here saying, I loved him so much. I would never do something like this because of the worst things you possibly could to him. And so at first he tries to make it sound like, oh, there was just, I slapped him a few times, then there was one bad head hit. A few times he's like, it's a harder injury. It's not the scar. Well, he did fall on the ground when this, and how come you never brought this up before? Because you've been sidestepping this entire time. And look, now you can't apologize to him either. And try to say that he got an injury on both sides of his head that way, of accidental falls or what have you. So now he's hit both sides of his head that you weren't going to tell the police. Got it. Says that Shanda, she never raised a hand to him, which I don't believe, but it does sound like she used him to be her physical enforcer. So if she wanted him hit, I can definitely see Paul doing it without question. But don't worry, because it's not even a hard slap. And then he slaps his hand to give a example, and it sounds like a hard slap.
But it wasn't like full force, but it was like to try to see if he would respond.
So then he recycles to what he said at the beginning. I feel like I could have done something. I should have put my foot down at some point. You should have. And you did. At some points, you did put your foot down. You didn't get all angry and actually try to defend him, but you would not do some of the punishments that she asked you to do. I loved him so much. not by these text messages. By these text messages, you hated him. You did show some concern here, some concern there, and then literally the next message that would go out the window. I couldn't imagine that. That's why the judge is like, I think you're just as bad as your mom, if not worse.
Believe me, I've tried to sit here and try to think, well, maybe Mr. Ferguson's not as bad as Mom. I think you're just as bad, if not worse. If not worse.
At the time when I heard that, I couldn't quite believe it. I was like, that seems very extreme. But I get it. I do. Because the translation from the text messages to the actions that were done to Timothy to what he's revealing in here do not line up. But then the detective asks a really smart question that Paul doesn't get the right answer to because he's not getting the actual purpose of it. And he says, what would have happened if you put your foot down? Paul was thinking like what would happen as the outcome for Timothy. Maybe something would be different. No, the question was asking, if you put your foot down, would your mother attack you or punish you or do anything that would force you or make you afraid to go against her? You didn't catch that and revealed the answer in itself of no. If you put your foot down, you were not afraid that she would do anything to you. Instead, if you put your foot down, you just think some things might have been different for Timothy. Reinforced by your earlier answer, I can't be afraid of her. I can never be afraid of her. She doesn't instill fear. You could have always put your foot down. But in the trial a few years later, you want to say, I could never put my foot down. I was so nervous. I wanted her to be happy with me. I didn't want her to be mad at me. Bullshit. And that brings us back to, I promised him I would protect him. I failed so hard. Actually, you didn't fail. You succeeded in everything you wanted to do. Y'all did absolutely everything you wanted to do. To my understanding, there's not a punishment you didn't go through, or at least test. There are punishments you didn't do again because you realized, oh, maybe we went a little too far there. And then a few days later, you would double down and do something even worse. But now I want to take one last little side tangent. And remember earlier, we went through Adam's statement to the police. We actually also have G's statement to the police. They connected with Child Protective Services and had a forensics interview with multiple people present and just got his perspective of things. And so I wanted to read that because it is very telling of what he observed. Because people always forget, kids watch everything. They always know more than you think they do. But adults are the naive ones, just assuming the kids can't comprehend what's happening around them. And before I read this, first and foremost, we do not blame G for anything. G was 7 years old and not responsible for any of this. He was only taught what he was taught, and even when he was taught what he was taught, the evidence shows he was pretty much a neutral party. There's nothing he could have done to help him, and it doesn't seem like by the reports that he was outwardly cruel like his brother and mother, which I feel like would be so easy to do, especially when you're that young. But he does say some concerning things right from the jump, but he reveals way more concerning things about Paul. Specifically. So that's why I want to read it, because this is also, G is an angel in Paul and Shanda's eyes. So I thought it was very interesting to see his perspective of what they were doing to him. And then after this, we will wrap this up because there is only a very, very small portion left, but it is the part that enraged me more than any other. But we will get there. Forensics interview. We scheduled an emergency forensics interview at the Child Abuse Council in Muskegon for, I'm guessing, G. The interviewer was Rachel Bada. Myself and CPS caseworker Chloe Silver were present for the interview. It was determined G was able to follow the rules of the forensics interviewing protocol. The entire interview was audio and visually recorded and will be on file at NSPD. The following is a summary of the interview. G said his brother Timothy is a bad boy. Timothy is only allowed to eat plain bread, plain wet bread, hot sauce, or hot sauce on bread. Didn't even know they gave him wet bread sometimes, but Jesus. Mama got motion detectors and cameras to stop Timothy from eating and drinking and from sneaking upstairs to get food. Timothy gets punished for sneaking food and water and for talking to, I'm guessing, G. His punishments include getting a dose of hot sauce. He also has to go in timeout. When he is in timeout, his mama gives Timothy a little bit of water, but mama makes him dump most of it out. G stood up and showed us Timothy's timeout pose. He faced the wall and put his hands behind his head. He said Timothy has to do this in his small room. Timothy also has to go in his small room for punishment. G said Timothy is not allowed to sleep in his bed anymore because he got in trouble. Now he sleeps in the small room. G said the small room is downstairs. There are no north wall. G said Timothy is only allowed to have his bed in the small room. G also said Mama has put leg and arm cuffs on Timothy before today, and she uses them anytime she wants. G stated Mama is the only one allowed to give Timothy punishments. Paul gets really angry at Timothy, and it scares Timothy and G. But Paul is not in charge unless Mama is at work. Paul has to ask Mama permission to give Timothy punishments. Like I said, she had him on a leash. G said he thinks some of their punishments made Timothy die. When asked if he talked to his mama about Timothy dying, he started to say he is not supposed to talk about Timothy dying. He said he does not want to talk about the bad thing with Timothy. He did not want to talk about Timothy and Mama. He only wanted to talk about himself and Mama. Which I don't blame him for that, because that's all he's been taught. He's been taught not to talk about Timothy, not to interact with Timothy, not to help Timothy when he's begging and anything like that. After the interview, we spoke with G's grandmother, who brought G to the interview. She said Timothy used to sneak food, so Shanda set rules that he could only eat what she made him. She makes him 3 meals a day, and that is it. She admitted the meals were very bland. She also said Shanda doesn't always have time to cook for Timothy, so he doesn't eat. If Shanda is not home, Paul refuses to make Timothy food. So I think this statement is very revealing about Paul even further. This is coming from G, the person he idolizes even more than his mother. And it sounds like G was also afraid of Paul, especially when he gets angry. And the most emotion I feel like I've seen is when Paul was on a phone call and the stepmom said that Paul will probably not see G again until he's at least 18, and that's only if G wants to see him at that time.
Of contact from the Vander Arks? Nothing?
Nope.
No, I figured as much. I just figured I'd ask. It'd be nice to at least, get to talk once when all this is done and over with. Just, tell him goodbye before I have to go to North Carolina. But I get the feeling that...
And I think that you're probably not going to see him until he's an adult if he wants to see you.
Yeah. Honestly, I wouldn't blame them.
With you being charged with child abuse, you're probably not going to be allowed around kids.
Yeah.
And he sounded more distressed or broken up about that. The same thing with Shanda. She got emotional on the stand when she read about G, something about G, and I'm like, so y'all could care for someone if you wanted to. You just chose not to. And if that's the case, you can enjoy every day of prison that you earned. I'm so glad G got out of that hell house too. He seemed like the only normal one there because he's still just a kid. And I can't imagine who he would have turned into if he remained with those two. Because I don't believe he would have been a great person otherwise. Now he's separated from them. He has a loving family. He has a chance to not move on, but to evolve past where he was stuck. I also can't imagine, I mean, they would have been charged with child abuse just for G living in those conditions, regardless of the fact if Timothy had survived or not. Like, that place was disgusting, even, and unhealthy and unsafe, even for the one individual they actually did love. But with all that said, let's wrap up this interrogation and get out of here.
I'm just gonna pause this a second. Need anything? You need to use the restroom. You need to drink water.
Do you have something I could snack on?
Yeah, I'll try.
I know it's hypoglycemia problems.
So what type of snack are we talking? Like chips or I don't know some cake.
Really anything that's maybe chips, yeah. Something with salt.
Can I have a snack? Are you kidding me? Can I have a snack after talking about you starving your brother to death for over 2 hours? You decide to wrap this whole thing up saying, can I have a snack? I have hypoglycemia issues. You didn't give a damn what issues Timothy had, and you gonna come in here and ask for a snack? This is almost, actually this is worse, but it was nearly on par with Sarah Catherine Boone Paulson.
He's escaping. The killer is escaping. Help me.
At the end of her interrogation, saying, am I going to be put in one of those small prison cells? Because last time I had a panic attack.
She has no clue.
So can I ask you, or whoever it is, those holding cells, the holding cells, am I going to be put in one of those?
I don't know.
Last time I had a panic attack.
And this is where this dark comedy reaches its apex in tragic irony of you complaining, am I going to be put in a holding cell? Even though this is the night after she zipped her boyfriend in a suitcase and left him to die there. So this lack of self-awareness with these criminals, especially the narcissistic, psychopathic ones, are wild. He already has an empty bottle of Dr. Pepper next to him. Now he needs a snack because, God forbid, he feels hunger or upset in any way. And there's probably more calories in that Dr. Pepper and bag of chips than you gave Timothy in a week. They should come back and say, sorry, we're fresh out of food, but you can go to hell though. Oh God, that's bad. That's insane. That is the wildest end to this interview that I could have possibly thought of. And he's trying to whisper it because he does sound somewhat ashamed to ask for it, and he absolutely should be. Okay, real weird random cut. But before I go to the end and my wrap-up thoughts, I almost forgot to put this in, but to play the Paul's statement right before sentencing. I called it a poem before, whatever. It can also be referred to as a fucking mess. So I want to watch that and then see the sentencing one more time.
What reasons could justify my actions? I could make up 1,000 and never believe one. What words could voice my regrets? I can think of millions, yet never feel it's enough. If I could do it all again and do it right, I would. I feel I will pay for my choices and yet never feel better because he's still gone. I have had time to think during my time in Muskegon County Jail, and I've realized many things about myself that I might never have considered otherwise. My problems and flaws, to put it simply, are the place to begin correction of self. I ask the judge for nothing more than mercy and fairness, to offer me compassion so I might learn from him.
No.
I only hope to better myself in the coming days, and serve my time with what little honor I have left, and to make right my faults in search of a better tomorrow.
Child. Anyway, so
These guidelines don't justify Mr. Ferguson's actions. Mr. Ferguson, I think you are a product of your environment, but I don't believe you that you're sorry. I don't. I don't think you have empathy. I don't think you have any emotion whatsoever. And that's what scares the court. It really scares me. I think you're sorry that you're here. I think you're sorry you got caught. I don't think you wanted Tim to die either, like your mother, because you would get caught and you wouldn't torture him anymore. Believe me, I've tried to sit here and try to think, well, maybe Mr. Ferguson's not as bad as Mom. I think you're just as bad.
And
If not worse. If not worse. Based on all that, the sentence of the court, you serve 30 years to 100 years in Michigan Department of Corrections.
Bon appetit!
Credit for 592 days you've already served.
What's your sentence for her?
electric chair.
Oh, shit. God damn it.
Electrocute that bitch. And I want you to pour some water on her first.
But yeah, that was it. That was the interrogation of Paul Byron Ferguson. And it was an absolute disaster. I don't think I've ever seen someone confess to so many horrific actions in one interrogation. Normally, you're just trying to get them to, did you do X? He said, I did X, Y, Z. I did A through Z. No, he actually said, I did Z through A. Z, Y, X, W, V, U, T, S, R, Q, P, O, N, M, L, K, J, H, E, F, E, D, C, B, A, and then some. And I'm glad he did. But again, this is why he made the smart move. He knows he confessed to all of this and gave all these terrible answers. There was no way he was going to win a trial. And his lawyer probably told him that and said, you need to plead guilty and hope there's a plea deal on the table.
You know, told me my testimony can't be used against me in my trial, which is like not going to come to that for me. I'm just going to hope that I can get a good deal off the bat.
But there wasn't, which I'm glad. They said you can plead guilty, but we are not going to promise any lower sentence whatsoever. He was just like, oh, I can testify against her and then ask for mercy. And because I testified against her and because they're going to think I have some mental disabilities, then I'll get off scotch-free. He actually said in one of these calls he thought maybe after these psych exams or evals, I won't have to do any time.
If the psych evals do well, I suppose, if the results show something, who knows, I may not be here much longer. I may not even see the inside of a prison.
And that was his true goal all along through all of this. We loved him. We didn't mean to do it intentionally. And if we did, it was her. So in short, do I think Paul Ferguson is irredeemable? No, I don't. I don't think anyone is irredeemable. However, he will not be anywhere close to that until he fully accepts responsibility for his part in all of this. And responsibility isn't just, I took X action, I took Y action. It's I wanted to. I liked it. This was part of my plan as well. He comes forward and he says that, he takes responsibility for that. Then he can take one step towards redemption. And that's not even towards redemption, but he can look at the door of redemption. And even that, it will take the rest of his life to actually prove that he's changed, that he can do good, and that he is nowhere near as evil as his mom. But as for now, and I thought it was a little harsh to hear at first, but that judge nailed it when it comes to analyzing this case and analyzing Paul's actual role in all of it. He didn't buy it, that detective didn't buy it, and Shanda didn't buy it either. We saw throughout his testimony, she's over here shaking her head this, shaking her head that, and I was like, you are just being bitter. You know you did that, stop. But now I'm like, she's shaking her head because he was right next to her the entire time. And now he's trying to make it sound like it was just her. But through the text messages, through the affidavits, through the phone calls, through everything that we have looked through in this marathon of a video, shows he was more self-aware than he was on the stand. He enthusiastically participated more than he'll ever confess, and he liked doing those punishments more than he'll ever admit. And he had a long-standing history of this behavior that showed all these red flags that he should never have been around Timothy. So that was this video. I apologize that this was even more depressing than what we normally cover. So I think my next video I need to do is something a little more lighter so that we can have a few more laughs and just, yeah, anything to kind of wash our palates of this. But I had very strong feelings about this case. I mentioned in my last video that one of the main reasons I started this YouTube channel is because I had so many opinions about Sarah's trial, and I had so many things about that interrogation that I wanted to say. The second reason was this interrogation. When I saw this originally, I had so many things I wanted to say that I felt like they were bubbling over and going to explode. So this will be the start and part of my one-shot series where I won't do a continual sustained coverage of a case like an immersive type thing that we kind of try to do here, but I wanted to go through the whole case as much as I could and wrap up my feelings of Paul Ferguson and leave him in the dust in the jail cell he will spend the majority, if not the rest of his life. And you have no one to blame but yourself. So this was a tough case and a tough video to get through. I hope you all are able to take care of yourselves after this video. Go watch something positive, watch something comedic, anything to kind of clear your head a little bit. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to comment, like, subscribe, dislike if you're feeling it. Until next time.